Chapter 338. Seeing Li Zhongjiu pocketing the 10,000 gold coins, many people's eyes turned red. They had also placed bets of 3 to 500, but Li Zhongjiu's luck was too good. Li Zhongjiu did not show any emotion when he received the money. He glanced at the odds, and finally placed the money on the 3 sixes. And it was all of them. He had just won 10,000 gold coins. And in the blink of an eye, he placed all of them. How was this gambling? He was clearly venting his anger. He's either a madman or an idiot. When the surrounding people saw Li Zhongjiu's actions, they could not help but shake their heads. It was better not to bet recklessly with this kid. Otherwise, if something went wrong, it would be troublesome. In a while, they would lose all of their capital. Place your bets. The dealer had already begun to shake the dice in his hand. Big, big, big. Small, small, small. His voice got louder and louder. The dealer was slightly pleased with himself. This time, he definitely did not lose his hand. 2, 3, 4 small. The moment he opened the dice, the dealer felt that his eyes were going blind. The lid in his hand could not help but fall to the ground. No, this is impossible. The crowd was in an uproar. No one dared to believe that what was in front of them was real. It was real. 3 sixes. In the blink of an eye, Li Zhongjiu's 10,000 gold coins became 1 million. One must know that at the beginning, Li Zhongjiu had only placed 100 gold coins. With this 1 million gold coins he could play however he wanted. Of course he had to be frugal. His life would be much easier. This was the charm of a casino. It could make you a winner in life overnight. However, it was also possible to fall into a valley. Li Zhongjiu was one of those lucky people. Now that he had 1 million gold coins in his hand, it was enough for Li Zhongjiu to stop. The dealer was also covered in cold sweat. Even his hands were trembling. They worked here for a commission. On this stage, the money they won every day would be deducted by 1,000th. Moreover, there was a limit to the amount of money they could lose at each table. If they exceeded this limit, they would have to compensate for the losses of the casino. If they could not afford it, they would have to wait for their limbs to be broken. 1 million was already the dealer's limit. If he continued to lose, he would lose his life. He did not dare to continue to bet. He quickly signaled someone in the distance. Then, a man in dark clothes slowly walked over. Hee everyone, have a good time. I haven't played in a long time, so I'll play with everyone. I will accompany you all. The man had thick eyebrows and a golden tooth in his mouth. When he smiled, the golden tooth seemed to reveal a trace of cold light. Some people could already see that the casino was here to deal with Li Zhongjiu. One must know that the casino opened its doors to do business. Of course, they could not directly drive people away. If you won a small amount, there would be no problem. However, if you played tricks and cheated, there would be plenty of ways to deal with you. If the dealer was not good, another gambling master would be replaced. It's Third Master Genia. I didn't expect Third Master Genia to personally take action. This is going to be a good show. This Third Master Genia mingled in various big casinos in his early years, and almost never lost. Later, I heard that he lost in the Boyu Casino. The boss did not directly chop off his fingers, but let him stay and watch the show. So that's how it is. I was wondering where Third Master Genia had been all these years. The Boyu Casino had a golden license. Of course, they would invite some experts to hold the fort. That Third Master Genia rolled up his sleeves. There was also a leopard tattoo on his thick arm. A pair of leopard eyes were staring at Li Zhongjiu. Even when everyone saw the leopard tattoo on the sleeve, they exclaimed in their hearts. It was a kind of creepy feeling. 1 million. Li Zhongjiu did not care. It was the same no matter who came. He did not come here for the money. In other words, the most important thing was not money. When Li Zhongjiu pushed the chip of 1 million on the 3 sixes, Third Master Genia's face showed a sinister smile. Third Master Genia's face also showed a trace of a sinister smile. How could there be nothing fishy about betting on 3 times? But a real master would tell you that he cheated. But you couldn't find any evidence, so there was nothing you could do about it. This was the best method, and Genia-san's method had to be better than Li Zhongjiu's. These dice are too light. Change it, Genia-san said. Immediately, someone replaced the wooden dice with golden dice. The golden light shone brightly, making the surrounding people drool. Just these 3 dice alone were worth a lot. In this round, no one dared to bet with Li Zongjio. They just watched quietly. Everyone knew that Li Zongjio would lose, but they were also looking forward to the appearance of a miracle. Of course, now was the matter between Li Zongjio and the other party. What needed to be solved was the grudge between the casino and Li Zongjio. If they rashly got involved, they would be regarded as a group. In the end, they would not have a good ending. Ha! Third Master Genius shouted. The power in his body was circulating, pouring into his arm. His arm instantly shook the dice cup in his hand. It kept shaking. Everyone only felt that the cup was releasing a golden aura, which was coming towards them. Clang, 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 clang. A crisp and pleasant sound was heard. Third Master Genius' hand shook in the air, creating afterimages. Gusts of wind blew, making the surrounding people nervous. Seeing Third Master Genius' means, they were extremely impressed. It's really powerful. Those 3 golden dice are at least 1 gene and 8 tails. With such an arm strength and the intensity of the shaking, the speed is terrifying. The surrounding people were talking about it. Li Zongjio was sitting quietly. Suddenly, Third Master Genius slammed the cup in his hand on the table with a bang. Place your bets. Open. Third Master Genius was very satisfied with his performance this time. This kind of smooth operation was impossible for ordinary people to learn. Therefore, when this move landed, Third Master Genius was very confident. 2 5s 1 6. Third Master Genius opened the lid in his hand. At this moment, he was ready to welcome the applause of the crowd. But when the answer was revealed, the whole audience was silent. The surrounding onlookers also opened their mouths in surprise, looking at the final result on the table. Third Master Genius also felt that the surrounding atmosphere was a bit strange. The moment he looked down, he was so shocked that he almost spat out the big golden tooth in his mouth. What? This is impossible. Third Master Genius roared. This was the result of his own shaking. You cheated. Third Master Genius pointed at Li Zongjio and roared. Oh, do you have evidence? If you don't, you know the rules. Li Zongjio knocked on the table lightly. This time, I won't argue with you. Let's continue. The so-called rules. If you accuse the other party of being a cheater, but can't produce effective evidence in the end, then you have to pull out a tooth and cut off a finger. After all, he was an adult, so he had to be responsible for what he said. Indeed, even if he wanted to cheat, only he, Third Master Genius, could cheat. After all, these things were in his hands. Moreover, Li Zongjio also bet in advance, not after Third Master Genius rolled out the numbers. This way, the difficulty of cheating would be even higher. But Third Master Genius knew. This Li Zongjio, there was definitely something wrong with him. Third Master Genius secretly glanced upstairs. A man wearing a purple robe nodded slowly. Third Master Genius took a deep breath, cheered himself up, and prepared for another round. 1 million gold coins. 100 times. 100 million. 100 million gold coins. It was placed in front of Li Zongjio. No one dared to believe their eyes. That was an entire 100 million gold coins. No one dared to believe it. The chips in their hands had already been converted into 10 million gold coins. A total of 10 pieces were placed in front of Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio did not hesitate at all. He once again pushed all the chips in his hand to the 3 6s in front of him. Hurry up and roll. Li Zongjio glanced at the other party. Third Master Genius' eyeballs almost fell out. Even his hands were trembling. He touched the dice cup in front of the table. Even he, Third Master Genius, had never experienced such a scene. 100 million gold coins. The odds were 100 times. 10 billion gold coins. Even if it was converted to purple yuan, it was still 100 million purple yuan. The income of the Great Joy Casino in one night was equivalent to this amount. This was when it was relatively popular. Some activities could achieve this kind of income. More and more people came to watch the game. It was obviously just a small gambling table in the hall, but it seemed to be a top-level gambling game. This teenager used 100 gold coins, and in just 3 rounds, he turned it to 100 million. Moreover, he did not stop. It was obvious that they were here for the casino. Chapter 339. Li Zongjiu's appearance had alarmed the manager of the casino. The manager was in the middle of dealing with the upcoming arrival of the Queen of Nine Victories tonight. The Queen of Nine Victories was a big shot in the gambling world. Most importantly, her identity was not simple. Otherwise, she would not have been able to survive until now after winning so much money. Therefore, the Queen of Nine Victories' background was also not simple. I knew someone would come to cause trouble, but I didn't expect him to come so quickly. Where did you find this person? Go and investigate. Genia 3's level is not enough to deal with this person. Go and find Malu. The manager of the casino Taifai said in a deep voice. The casino would encounter trouble all year round, so there was nothing to panic about. Even if they really lost 10 billion gold coins, it was not a big deal. They could earn it back in 2 days. But the most important thing was to settle this matter and find out who exactly Li Zongjiu was. Only by knowing the root of the problem could they solve the root of the problem. Taifai stood on the second floor, looking down. Genia 3 had finished shaking the dice, but he did not dare to open it. He placed his hand on the dice cup and looked at Li Zongjiu's calm eyes. He already had a bad feeling in his heart. Sure enough. Old 3, go to the back and rest. I'll open it for you. An old and slightly hoarse voice rang out, and a stooped figure walked out. Lu Yi. When Genia 3 saw the old man coming, it was as if he had been relieved. When his whole body relaxed, he almost fainted. This kind of pressure was too strong, and not many people could withstand it. This was also because Genia 3 was here. After all, if he opened it, it was very likely that he would lose 10 billion gold coins. Even if his hands and feet were chopped off, it would not be worth it. The old man's appearance could be considered as saving his life. The old man who appeared was not an ordinary person. He was casually wearing a white coat, black trousers, and a pair of cloth shoes. There was a tobacco pouch hanging from his waist, but there was no tobacco pipe in sight. Li Zongjiu felt a bit of pressure from the old man. Finally, an expert had arrived. However, his strength could only be said to be average. At most, he had the strength of a 5th-grade origin grandmaster. Compared to Li Zongjiu, he could not pose any threat. That young man isn't feeling well. I'll take over this round. Is there any problem? As you wish. Li Zongjiu waved his hand and said. Malu smiled faintly, the wrinkles on his face almost sticking together. However, he was not in a hurry to open the results. Instead, he grabbed a handful of tobacco from the tobacco pouch at his waist. There were a few wisps of smoke between his fingers. As he gently rubbed them, a wisp of green smoke rose from his fingers and was completely inhaled by Malu. Sorry, I'm addicted to smoking. I'll open it now. As he spoke, Malu flicked his wrist and instantly flipped open the dice cup on the table. The moment he flipped open the cup, the surrounding people could smell the smoke. The smell of smoke rushed into his mind, and in an instant, he saw the die appear in front of him. What? Malu wanted to hypnotize the people around him and switch the dice, but he realized that his mental energy was unable to move the dice in front of him. It was as if the dice were fixed in place. The moment he forced the dice, he immediately felt a wave of energy from his mental energy. It seemed to have rushed into Malu's mind. Boom! Malu's mind suddenly buzzed. His whole body seemed to have been shocked silly, and his eyes were in a daze. However, the people around him all burst into cheers and clapped their hands even harder. It was simply too shocking. Li Zongjiu won again. 10 billion gold coins. From the initial 100 gold coins, it had multiplied by 100 million. How did he get such a number? 10 billion gold coins. Even Malu had failed. Who was this young man? Taifai's eyes flashed coldly when he saw this scene from the second floor. It didn't matter who sent Li Zongjiu. Today he dared to be so arrogant in his territory. There was no way he would let Li Zongjiu leave so easily. He had to make Li Zongjiu pay the price. Taifai was just about to order for Li Zongjiu to be cleared and brought upstairs for a good talk when a strong fragrance wafted over. Taifai's eyes moved slightly, and he immediately looked over. He immediately saw a woman in a long dress. She exuded a seductive aura from head to toe. Her proud figure and slender legs were incomparably attractive. It made one feel as if a scorching aura was slowly rising from her lower abdomen. Half of his shoulders were exposed, and he looked at the scene before him. Tai Feihe also reacted in an instant. The person who had come was none other than the 9 Victories Heaven Empress. So it's the 9 Victories Heaven Queen. When did you arrive? She was already by his side. Tai Feihe still didn't know what his subordinates were doing. However, after seeing the 9 Victories Heaven Queen's figure and aura, it was very normal that his subordinates couldn't stop her. I'm here to see if Supervisor Tai has encountered any problems. The corner of the 9 Victories Heaven Queen's lips curled up slightly. Her face was heavily powdered. Although she wasn't in her prime, her current charming appearance was the kind of posture that many people liked. As she spoke, the 9 Victories Heaven Queen looked at Li Zongjiu. She then looked at Ma Lu, who looked as if he was facing a great enemy. She somewhat understood the situation in front of her. It seemed like this matter wasn't easy to solve. Even Master Ma Lu had taken action, but it still wasn't resolved. The 9 Victories Heaven Queen was slightly surprised. I did meet a troublesome kid. But don't worry, Heaven Queen. I'll send someone to deal with him. It won't affect tonight's game. Tai Feihe said indifferently. No need. It's been a long time since I met an expert. Today is a good time to give it a try. The 9 Victories Heaven Queen bit her lips lightly. She seemed to be very interested in a little fresh meat like Li Zongjiu. After speaking, the 9 Victories Heaven Queen walked down the stairs. There was a commotion in the crowd. Sir, should we stop him? A subordinate came up to Tai Feihe and asked. The 9 Victories Queen of Heavens wasn't a member of their casino. She was only invited to help with publicity. However, if the 9 Victories Queen of Heavens represented them and deliberately lost to Li Zongjiu, then the casino would be the one paying in the end. So what if the two of them were in cahoots? Based on that kid's character, he would probably bet the 10 billion. It's the 9 Victories Heaven Queen. The 9 Victories Heaven Queen is here. Oh my god. The 9 Victories Heaven Queen is exactly the same as the girl of my dreams. You're shameless. The 9 Victories Heaven Queen stood in front of Ma Lu. Even Ma Lu couldn't back down. After all, in the gambling world, Ma Lu was considered the second level. However, the 9 Victories Heaven Queen was the first level expert. Little guy, how about I accompany you to play? After saying that, the 9 Victories Heaven Queen winked at Li Zongjiu. She was extremely flirtatious. Any normal man wouldn't be able to stand it. However, Li Zongjiu wasn't an ordinary man. When he saw this scene, he didn't make any movements. Instead, he slowly put away the chips on the table. I've played enough for today. In a few days I'll be back. At that time, it won't be just a little. Li Zongjiu stood up and said. Then he raised his head and looked at Tai Feihe, who was upstairs. Then he pointed at the chips in his hand. Thank you. Li Zongjiu directly took the 10 billion chips and walked to the exchange counter. As for the 9 Victories Heaven Queen, Li Zongjiu didn't care at all. What's the point of paying attention to such an old woman? She's disgusting. The people at the exchange counter didn't dare to act rashly. Instead, they asked for instructions from Tai Feihe upstairs. Tai Feihe nodded. 10 billion. They could afford to lose. With so many people here tonight, they couldn't directly kill Li Zongjiu. However, they had to find out the kid's identity first. 10 billion. In the end, the other party gave him 100 gold yuan notes. Each note was worth 1 million gold yuan. All of them were placed in a box and handed to Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu turned around and left the Broad Delight Casino. The 9 Victories Heaven Queen looked at Li Zongjiu's back as he left. Her lips curled into a playful smile. Although there was a smile in her eyes, it was filled with danger. In Royal City, no one had ever disrespected her. Li Zongjiu was the first person to disrespect her. Although he was just a little boy, it was a provocation, and even an insult to the 9 Victories Heaven Queen. How dare he insult her charm? Then, I'll let you have a taste of my power. Chapter 340. Li Zongjiu easily walked away with 10 billion gold coins. This night's harvest was indeed a lot. If the Li family were to sell some low-level elixirs, it would take a long time to accumulate so much money. However, this method was not suitable. If he was addicted to gambling, sooner or later, he would encounter an expert. The reason why Li Zongjie was able to win so easily was naturally due to his mental strength. The two people in front of him, Genius San, should be good at gambling. However, if he encountered a mental strength expert, he basically had no chance, and was easily beaten. Although Ma Lu had some skills, this strength was far from enough in front of Li Zongjie. It was easy to defeat him. However, the appearance of the old woman also made Li Zongjie feel the threat of the other party. In terms of killing, Li Zongjie had 10,000 ways to kill this person. However, on the gambling table, he really did not dare to make any guarantees, so he directly stopped. However, in the Boyu Casino, Li Zongjie was bound to win. No one could protect him. When he returned to the Heavenly Star Medicine Mansion in the middle of the night, the Boyu Casino did not send anyone to follow him. Otherwise, the result would only be a few more corpses. Hey, what is this? An outdoor activity in the incandescent mountain? Li Zongjie saw a notice board under the dormitory. A line of words was clearly written on the board. The meeting time and the task content were very clear. The incandescent mountain. If I remember correctly, it should be a flaming mountain now. If I use the power of the flames in the core, it will definitely be able to temper my body. Li Zongjie suddenly thought. Although it was said that under normal circumstances, it was very good to improve one's strength. However, if Li Zongjie did not go easy, it was really rare for him to be hit. Letting Li Zongjie deliberately take a beating was indeed a bit of a crazy idea. Taking poison was also a method. However, as time passed, Li Zongjie's body became stronger and stronger. The effect became less and less obvious. As for some extreme training, it was also a good idea to use the place where the terrifying origin energy gathered to temper the body's strength. For example, in a place like the incandescent mountain, it could also be used to temper the body. He was only focused on training and forgot about these things. The main thing was that when he was busy, it was hard to remember these things. Li Zongjie originally had no interest in this kind of outdoor activity, but now, so he decided to take a trip. After all, the incandescent mountain was under the jurisdiction of the imperial city. But outside of the city, there was a troop stationed in the mountain. This troop was called the Vermilion Army, troops who had gathered a large amount of fire elemental energy to train. However, if the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor wanted to come, the Vermilion Bird Army would definitely welcome them and open the door wide. Li Zongjie, who had won 100 million purple yuan, was cultivating in his own room. For Li Zongjie, the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor was only for the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor. The reason why he stayed in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was so that he could enter the territory of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor and experience it. The prerequisite was that his strength had reached a certain level. If one wants to clear the first 14 floors of the Genius Tower and solve these difficult problems, one's elemental energy needs to be at least at the peak of the Sky Origin Ancestor level. Li Zongjie had made a small breakthrough. However, he was only a second-grade Sky Origin Ancestor. Therefore, he wasn't in a hurry. However, it had been a thrilling night for the Great Delight Casino. Tai Feihe was extremely grateful to the 9 Victory Celestial Queen for her help. If it hadn't been for the 9 Victory Celestial Queen, the other party wouldn't have left so easily. It was obvious that they had chosen to retreat after sensing the 9 Victory Celestial Queen's strength. Based on the information that Tai Feihe had gathered, this kid's name was Li Zongjie. Although Tai Feihe didn't know where Li Zongjie had come from, the fact that he was the first place on the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor's freshman roll this year was enough to pose a threat. Being able to obtain such a ranking was already very impressive. Who knew what sort of arrogant power was supporting him? Since you are the first place on the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor's freshman roll, I will give you some face. I hope that you will know when to stop. Tai Feihe thought to himself. If Li Zongjie came to cause trouble again, Tai Feihe wouldn't be polite. Everyone knew that the Yi family was behind the Great Delight Casino. No one dared to offend the Yi family of the Sacred Flame Imperial City. No matter who was behind the Yi family would be able to take care of them. That kid will definitely come back. The Empress of 9 Victories, Pan Shi, arrived in front of Tai Feihe and spoke indifferently. What do you mean? Tai Feihe frowned. He was in charge of managing the casino. All he needed to do was make money. However, he wasn't good at gambling. He was better at killing people. His eyes don't look like a gambler's, Pan Shi said indifferently. There was also a great interest in Li Zhongjio in his eyes. Not a gambler's eyes? What do you mean? He won 10 billion in my casino. Isn't he a gambler? Tai-Fai suddenly said. When he thought of the 10 billion gone down the drain, he couldn't wait to capture Li Zhongjio and skin him alive. In his casino, there was only profit. There would never be a loss. If the casino was losing money, Tai-Fai wouldn't be sitting here. Even if Li Zhongjio took away 10 billion gold coins, Tai-Fai would have earned the money back by the end of the night. With the reputation of the Empress of 9 victories, he could easily get the money back. He only wanted to win. Or rather, he didn't come for the money. Pan Shi closed her eyes and recalled Li Zhongjio's eyes. He was so calm. From the beginning to the end, his eyes didn't fall on any chips or dice. There was only a hint of playfulness. Therefore, the Empress of 9 victories knew that Li Zhongjio wasn't here for the money, nor was he here to gamble. If he's not here for the money, then he's here for me. The next time I meet this person, I won't let him go so easily. My Great Joy Casino has been in business for so many years. How could any Tom, Dick, or Harry destroy it? At this point, Tai-Fai's face was full of murderous intent. Clearly, Tai-Faiha was not someone to be trifled with. It did not matter if you were to cause trouble elsewhere. But if you were to find Tai-Faiha, then even if you were under the feet of the emperor, he would still have a way to cut you into 1,000 pieces. Pan Shi didn't say much, but she was curious. What kind of person could have such a gaze? She was very curious. Early morning, Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. There were already a few people gathered in the square. Some had just woken up from a dream, while others were still sleepy. In the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, some of the rules were quite strict. After all, this wasn't an ordinary school. They never rejected students. Moreover, they didn't lack good students. If you weren't obedient enough, then you could only be asked to leave. That was how domineering it was. There were plenty of geniuses. It didn't matter if you were there or not. Therefore, under such circumstances, there were very few people who dared to not attend class like Li Zhongjio. Only the first and second years participated in the outdoor activities this time. There were about 500 people in total. The third years were basically trying to break through to the next realm. At this time, there weren't any classes. They only needed to complete their final assessment. The fourth years were basically staying in the Genius Pavilion, preparing to tackle difficult problems. The competition for the top 10 spots on the Alchemist ranking was very intense. Everyone was unwilling to be outdone. They weren't even willing to take half a step back. It was all for the sake of the rankings. If you didn't move forward, then it was the same as moving backward, because others would constantly move forward. In addition, there were some who were sick or took leave for special reasons. Therefore, there were only about 500 teachers and students participating in the outdoor activities. Li Zhongjio came to the square. The surrounding people were basically chatting in 2s and 3s. As the sun rose, the number of people in the courtyard gradually increased. A ferocious gaze was fixed on Li Zhongjio. At this moment, he couldn't wait to pick up the brick on the ground and smash it on Li Zhongjio's head. And the source of this angry light was Murong Jian. Senior brother Murong, it's that Li Zhongjio. That brat actually dared to appear. I thought that he was hiding in the dormitory and didn't dare to come out. Murong Jian was already rubbing his fists. He was waiting to teach Li Zhongjio a lesson. As for Li Zhongjio, he closed his eyes and rested. In his mind, he was reading the prose of the White God. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Li Zhongjio and blocked the sunlight. Are you Li Zhongjio, junior brother Li? Chapter 341. Junior brother Li? Li Zhongjio opened his eyes. Who was this guy who dared to take advantage of him? He really thought highly of him. How dare he call him junior brother? Standing in front of Li Zhongjio was a handsome young man, who was a few years older than Li Zhongjio. His hair was neatly trimmed, and his eyebrows were sharp like swords. His figure was also tall and sturdy. He was simply a model of a talented person with a graceful demeanor. At the same time, there was a friendly smile on his face. I'm Sima Chun, from the B class of the Heavenly STEM faculty. Sima Chun said with a gentle smile, coupled with the faint herbal fragrance on his body. This was a fragrance pouch that he specially made. Basically, any girl would like this smell. Therefore, Sima Chun usually carried this fragrance pouch with him. Sima Chun? That would be someone from the Sima family. The Sima family was in charge of the special envoys in the country. There were countless experts and their influence was very far-reaching. Sima Chun's position in the family was not low. He was considered one of the more outstanding direct disciples. The reason why Sima Chun had sought out Li Zhongjie was because he had heard that Li Zhongjie was closely related to Yi Guxing's death. On top of that, the Sima clan had suffered an all-out counterattack from the Yi clan. Some of their members had also suffered a heavy blow. They had been ambushed by Yi Lan Tian many times in the open and in the dark. There were even quite a number of people who had been directly killed. However, the Sima family was not a pushover. Recently, they were also preparing for a counterattack. As a member of the Sima family, Sima Chun was also trying his best to come up with a solution. Since the Yi family wanted to kill Li Zhongjie, why not pull Li Zhongjie to his side? Therefore, Sima Chun took the initiative to come and get in touch with Li Zhongjie. Not to mention whether Li Zhongjie could create a lot of value. The Yi family was already uncomfortable with his faction. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. At least, that was what Sima Chun thought. Who's your junior brother? Who's smiling at you? Get lost. Li Zhongjie said directly, not giving Sima Chun any face. Sima Chun was famous for his mild temper. Even if someone pointed at his nose and scolded him, he wouldn't get angry. Instead, he would talk to you calmly. Scolding people was wrong, but no one knew what he would do behind their backs. Now that Sima Chun was here, he couldn't react to Li Zhongjie's words. How could someone be so rude? He must have heard wrongly, Sima Chun thought to himself. After all, it was still early in the morning, and no one was awake yet. I'm Sima Chun, also from the Heavenly Gone Court. I'm a year older than you. I'm your mother. Do I know you well? Go away, you're blocking my son. Li Zhongjie waved his hand. His voice was very loud. Sima Chun's expression became quite awkward after hearing it. Now that he heard it clearly, Li Zhongjie didn't seem to like hearing that he was older than him. However, he couldn't just ask him to get lost. Junior brotherly, I heard that you've caused a lot of trouble. Although my Sima family isn't a famous family, it's not a problem for us to solve some ordinary problems. If you're willing to cooperate with us. You said that you can help me solve the problem, right? Li Zhongjie suddenly said. Sima Chun had thoroughly understood the saying don't slap a smiling person. His skin was so thick that even Li Zhongjie was helpless against him. Li Zhongjie had no choice but to talk to him nicely. Of course, I'm not bragging, but there's no problem in King City that I can't solve. Sima Chun said until here, stopping his waist. At this moment, it was as if the radiance was shining on Sima Chun's body. Li Zhongjie couldn't help but touch his nose. A grown man actually using such a fragrant pouch. I'm really impressed. Hey, there's a bitch called Morong over there. Help me settle it. Otherwise he'll definitely kill me, Li Zhongjie said. Sima Chun was also confused. Morong bitch. There's actually such a person in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor? He's been here for a year, but he's never heard of anyone with that name. But speaking of Morong, there's only one person with the surname Morong. Sima Chun turned around and immediately saw Morong Jian standing not far away. At this moment, Morong Jian's body was shrouded in a haze. At the same time, killing intent was released from his body, faintly enveloping Li Zhongjie. If there weren't so many people around, Morong Jian would definitely pounce on Li Zhongjie and tear Li Zhongjie into pieces. Only then would he be able to relieve the hatred in his heart. When Sima Chun saw Morong Jian, he instantly understood that the Morong bitch Li Zhongjie was talking about was Morong Jian. Although Morong Jian's name sounded a little murderous, adding the word person to it was indeed a little strange. However, no one had ever dared to use Morong Jian's name as a joke. Morong Jian represented the Morong Wangfu. In the Morong Wangfu, there was a Morong Wangfu, a Yuan King elite. If he heard that his own name was being used as a joke, even if he was skinned alive, what could he do? Oh my god, do you have a grudge against Morong Jian? When Sima Chun saw Morong Jian, he was instantly terrified. One had to know that Morong Jian was an expert ranked 12th on the alchemy master list. Most importantly, Morong Jian was only in his second year. In 2 years, rushing to the top 10 of the alchemy master list wasn't difficult at all. Who would dare to offend someone with such extraordinary potential? With a Yuan King elite backing him, who would dare to offend him? Okay. Just pretend that I wasn't here. Sima Chun waved his hands. If he stood together with Li Zongjio and caused Morong Jian to misunderstand, the problem would be serious. Morning, Li Zongjio. Hey, isn't that Sima Chun? Do the two of you know each other? Kuan Erishur walked over to Li Zongjio. He took the initiative to greet him, but when he saw that Li Zongjio didn't seem to have any intention of paying attention to him, he just continued talking. All right. Yesterday, you didn't go to class. The form teacher asked me to tell you to be careful in the future and not cause trouble for her. However, let me tell you, our form teacher's figure is really hot. I just don't know what her temper is like. If it's very fiery, then I probably won't have a chance. I prefer the cute and lovable type. Lan Kuan muttered to himself. At the same time, he was thinking about yesterday's class. Oh, my temper is very fiery? Li Zongjio had already retreated a long time ago. Before Kuan Erishur approached, he had already sensed an aura. However, Kuan Erishur didn't seem to have sensed it. He was still daydreaming and imagining something. He saw a young lady in her 20s wearing a light purple dress and a pair of fiery red boots. One look and one could tell that these boots were a rather powerful origin artifact. Not really, Kuan Erishur replied instinctively. However, the moment he said this, he realized that something was wrong. He turned around and saw Ling Yan standing behind him. He had a faint smile on his face as he sent a kick flying. Bang! Lan Kuan was sent flying by the kick. He flew for nearly 50 meters before landing on his butt. There was no room for discussion for this kick. Even if Kuan Erishur was prepared, he definitely wouldn't be able to block this move. Li Zongjio shook his head helplessly. It was really hard on this kid. You are Li Zongjio? Ling Yan retracted her leg and tidied up her clothes. Raising her leg so high in front of everyone was indeed a little bad. She glanced at Li Zongjio indifferently. This kid seemed to be hard to deal with. However, under her Ling Yan, there wasn't anyone who couldn't be taught. Chapter 342. Seeing someone fly out. The students present were all shocked. When they saw the person who attacked, they all understood what had happened and silently moved their bodies into the distance. If he accidentally offended her, he would be in for a treat. This lady's fiery temper wasn't just for show. These second-year students all knew of a legend. It was this little grandaunt who had once beaten up a prince to the point where he had to be hospitalized. How could someone who could do such a thing be simple? This lady's background was quite terrifying. Not only was she the granddaughter of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manners Master, even the current emperor loved and doted on her. Entering and leaving the palace was as simple as entering and exiting her own home. After kicking Kuan Erishur, Ling Yan looked at Li Zongjio. Hearing Ling Yan's question, Li Zongjio nodded. Yes, there was nothing wrong with admitting his name. However, if this lady in front of him wanted to make a move, Li Zongjio wouldn't be polite. Let's see who has the upper hand. Just now Kuan Erishur should have told you that I am your class teacher. If anything happens to you, I will be responsible. So you better not cause trouble for me. I know your talent is very good, but in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, there are many more people who are more talented than you. Don't be arrogant and complacent. Ling Yan wanted to kill Li Zongjio's momentum. Otherwise, if there was any work to be done, this Li Zongjio wouldn't cooperate well. It was his first time being a class teacher, so of course he had to do it well. Even if there were only 2 students, he had to make them stand out. This was what a class teacher should do. As long as they don't provoke me, there won't be a problem. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Speaking in such a manner, it was clearly saying that everything was the fault of others. He wouldn't be wrong. Even if he beat someone up, it was the other person who provoked him first. Don't worry. If anyone dares to look for trouble and provoke you, you can beat them back. If they dare to weaken the prestige of my Heavenly STEM course, then you can scram as well. Ling Yan said. With that sharp and spirited gaze, probably not many people would dare to confront Ling Yan. Although she tried her best to be a responsible class teacher and wanted to be a role model, she still could not change her character of getting physical and killing when she encountered problems. Li Zhongjiu couldn't help but feel amused. This little girl's personality was quite straightforward. When Li Zhongjiu came to the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, it was already more than 2,000 years later. Even if Ling Yan was not dead, he should be in a state of seclusion. Only when one's cultivation reached the Supreme Being realm would one be able to break through the 3,000 years of lifespan. Even in the primitive Emperor realm, one could only live for 2,000 years. This would depend on the cultivation of the elemental formula. Some primitive Emperor realm experts could only live for about 1,000 years. Therefore, there were very few people who could survive for 3,000 years. Even before the age of 2,000, Li Zhongjiu was in a state of cultivation and rarely interacted with the outside world. It was only after he became famous by luck and became a pinnacle expert and broke through the Supreme Being realm that he began to move around the continent more frequently. Because Li Zhongjiu knew of higher realms, he was also searching for higher realms and levels with all his heart. Rubbing his butt, Kuan Erishur limped back and came to Li Zhongjiu. At this moment, Ling Yan was also walking towards the group of teachers. "SSS, you don't say. This temper is not ordinary," Kuan Erishur said with a grimace. Obviously, that move was quite powerful and Kuan Erishur could not bear it. His body also flew out involuntarily. Li Zhongjiu was too lazy to look at Kuan Erishur. If you didn't act tough, he wouldn't have beaten you up. He did not expect Kuan Erishur to have such a personality that deserved a beating. Li Zhongjiu did not expect this at all. He was simply a chatterbox. "Hey, I saw that girl staring at you for a long time. Do you have a grudge?" Kuan Erishur nudged Li Zhongjiu with his shoulder, which made Li Zhongjiu frown. However, he didn't say anything. He followed Lan Kuan's line of sight and saw Gong Jiu, who had a ponytail, waving at him. It seemed like she was greeting him. However, there were a few girls beside Gong Jiu who were also chattering, so they did not come over. "Have your sister," Li Zhongjiu said. The plaza with more than 500 people was bustling with noise and excitement. However, when a voice rang out in the plaza, everyone could not help but quiet down. Then a figure appeared in the plaza. Li Zhongjiu remembered this person. It was the recruitment director at that time, Director Shang Diqing. Shang Diqing stood on the high platform. "Every class do a head count. Teachers, report to me. After the head count is done, you can board the sky-shaking ship." Sky-shaking ship. Every time they went out, it would go against the low-key nature of the Heaven Star Medicine Manor. Therefore, every time they went out, they would use the sky-shaking ship to carry people. It was a low-key way to go out. It was also a more covert and efficient way. The sky-shaking ship produced by the Zheng family of the Jade Wave Giant City was indeed a powerful weapon. The first to board the ship was Li Zhongjiu, and the other two. There were only 3 people in total, so the head count was naturally fast. Ling Yan walked in front, bringing Li Zhongjiu and Kuan Erishur onto the ship. There were more than 1,000 seats in the cabin. "You two stay in this cabin. Don't cause trouble for my people. If someone comes to provoke you, don't lose face for me," Ling Yan said as he turned around and walked up the stairs. There was another cabin on the higher floor. It was for the teachers. The treatment was indeed different. Presumably, the seats on the higher floor would be better. "Teacher, don't worry," Kuan Erishur said with a smile. He knew that Li Zhongjiu did not like to talk. Ling Yan did not seem to intend to listen to their reply. Therefore, after Kuan Erishur finished speaking, no one responded. The scene was a little awkward. The two of them waited for a while. Then, another group of people came up. This time there were a total of 5 people. "Teacher, please." Of the 5 people who came up, the one in the lead looked young and handsome. He was full of talent. The accessories on his body were also quite low-key and expensive. That person did not look back, and directly walked up to the second floor. He was also a teacher. The other 4 people waited until that teacher had completely gone upstairs, and could not be seen. Then, they got up and walked towards Li Zhongjiu and Ling Yan. "You two go sit in the back. One of them walked up with an arrogant face. The front row seats were more comfortable. At the same time, it was a symbol of status. And the symbol on their chest was the symbol of the Heavenly STEM A class. They were all second-year students of the Heavenly STEM A class. Kuan Erasure looked at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio did not respond. Then he did not respond either. He just looked out the window. I'm talking about you too. Two new students, you actually dare to sit in the first row. Impudent. As he said that, one of them stretched out his leg and kicked towards Li Zongjio's leg. Chapter 343. Li Zongjio, who was sitting down, had yet to make a move. Kuan Erasure took the lead and kicked out, blocking the kick. Bang! The person who kicked out immediately took a step back. You're courting death. After being forced back by Kuan Erasure, the person was instantly enraged. He wanted to cripple Kuan Erasure, but he was stopped by his companions. There were so many people behind them. If they were to make a move now, wouldn't it be against the rules of the academy? You two first years are very arrogant. I hope that you can be so arrogant when you reach the White Blaze Mountain. Although the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor is safe, the number of students who die outside every year is not small. A person walked forward with a sinister smile on his face. There was a black mole the size of a mung bean under the corner of his mouth. It was disgusting to look at. Originally, these people were prepared to leave after speaking and temporarily did not care about it. But when they were leaving, Li Zongjio suddenly stretched out his leg and kicked the last person. Bang! 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 The four people collided and fell one after another, lying on each other's bodies. This scene was seen by some of the girls who had just come up, and they all covered their eyes. My eyes, my eyes! So embarrassing, I can't believe I did such a thing. The few people who had fallen to the ground were filled with shame and indignation. They clenched their fists and wished they could throw a punch at Li Zongjio's face. However, Li Zongjio calmly turned his head and looked at these people as he spoke indifferently. You should be careful when you walk. There are many people who fall to their deaths every year in the mainland. It seemed like a kind reminder, but it made those people furious. You have guts. In the end, they sat down angrily, because the people who were coming up the ship one after another also had to walk through this passage and sit at the back. Even Li Zongjio shook his head helplessly. After 3,000 years of cultivation in his previous life, he thought that he had already become an old man. However, now that he had been reborn, he seemed to have regained his youthful mentality and made such a childish move. If someone knew Li Zongjio's mental age, they would definitely think that Li Zongjio was an old urchin. Very quickly, Morong Jian and the rest also boarded the boat. When they saw Li Zongjio sitting in the first row, their eyes were filled with disdain. It was as though they were saying, "You can show off now. Wait till we reach the White Blaze Mountain, we'll make you suffer." As the saying goes, geniuses are envied by others. If you displayed talent and strength that was much stronger than ordinary people, you would often be out of place in a big environment. Junior brother Li, junior brother Lan. Sima Chun also greeted the two of them, mainly because Sima Chun had been greeting people along the way. Most of the people responded because of this face, plus Sima Chun's strength wasn't weak. He was quite a popular person. Gong Jiu also came up and winked at Li Zongjio. When the surrounding sisters saw Li Zongjio, they also threw a few flirtatious glances. They were already second-year students and had seen many things. What's more, Heavenly Star Medicine Manor didn't have a rule that forbade cross-year relationships. Although Li Zongjio was young, his cold personality made people very fond of him. They couldn't help but want to take a few more glances at him. Hey, did you see that? Those sisters just winked at me. Kuan Erasure seemed a little excited. He was here to make a name for himself. As a future hero, he should first have a beauty in his arms. He should at least have a few beauties by his side to accompany him. Otherwise, how could he become a hero in the future and leave behind some good stories? These were all necessary. Li Zongjio completely ignored Kuan Arashi's narcissism. Although there were many people, the efficiency was relatively high. Soon, all the students were on the sky-shaking ship. With a boom, the sky-shaking ship sped up and charged into the clouds. Whoosh! Its speed was incomparably fast, and it quickly rushed into the clouds. Because Heavenly Star Medicine Manor had already reported before, when they rushed into the clouds, a team of sky guards quickly came to confirm. When the airship reached a certain height, Zhang Tai could see a large number of air cavalries patrolling in the sky, which was covered with clouds and mist. After all, some meta beasts lived in the sky. If they accidentally passed by Grand Feast King City and found a lot of food below, they would definitely rush down to eat. The ground might not be useful. By the time they found out, it might be too late. Therefore, there was a need for a layer of defense in the sky. It could be seen that this batch of air troops was relatively powerful. The meta beasts they were riding were all third-level meta beasts comparable to meta generals. Regardless of whether it was attacking or defending, it was the best choice. These air cavalry are really huge. Kuan Erasure looked out of the window at the air cavalry that was escorting the sky-shaking ship. His eyes were filled with envy and amazement. It's all fake. Any 6th-level spectral phoenix will destroy them in less than 2 minutes. Li Zhongjiu said faintly. That was indeed the case. A 6th-level meta beast was equivalent to an Origin Emperor expert. If such a meta beast suddenly descended from the sky, not many people would be able to resist it. However, there were only a few 6th-level meta beasts in the entire continent. Meta beasts that had grown to such a level would definitely have intelligence, as long as they weren't born stupid. It wouldn't be a problem for them to talk to humans directly. Rashly attacking a powerful empire was obviously not a wise choice, unless there was a reason behind it. However, if that was the case, there was still room for discussion. It's easy for you to say. A 6th-level meta beast and a spectral phoenix. I wonder if I can see such a legendary meta beast before I die. Kuan Erasure said. Anyone who cultivated would think that one day, they would be able to sit on the back of a powerful meta beast and soar into the sky. They would be able to trample the entire world under their feet. At that time, they would truly be free and unfettered in the world. Now it was just like in Monarch City. In Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, they had to be obedient. If they were careless and offended someone, they would be in big trouble. Therefore, Ling Yin had been emphasizing that they had to keep a low profile and not cause any trouble. If they really caused any trouble, it would be quite troublesome. In just 15 minutes, the sky-shaking ship began to descend. With a boom, the sky-shaking ship stopped at a certain height. Li Zhongjiu and the others walked out of the deck and immediately felt a heat wave sweeping towards them. Whoosh! The heat wave hit them in the face. The surrounding air was mixed with extremely dense fire attribute elemental energy. In the distance, there was a huge white mountain peak standing tall. On that mountain, there were only some pale white rocks. There were no crops or plants on it. There were only these dry rocks and potholes. This mountain peak was also incomparably huge. It was close to 1,000 feet tall. This was the White Blazing Mountain. Everyone, go down and gather at the location. Director Shang Diqing said. This time he was the leader of the instructors. Whoosh! Whoosh! The instructors landed one after another. Li Zhongjiu and the others also flew down. The sky-shaking ship stopped at a rather high altitude. It was close to 100 meters from the ground. If it went down a little more, it would probably cause a sandstorm. Fortunately, these students were not mediocre. Each of them happily landed on the ground. Some even purposely showed off their operation. The sky-shaking ship also rose into the air and flew towards the distance. It could be considered as leaving and waiting for the designated time to come back. Before disembarking, Director Shang Diqing also used the broadcast on the sky-shaking ship to explain the rules of this outdoor activity clearly. The time limit was 3 days and 3 nights. Within this stipulated time, enter the White Blazing Mountain and search for the medicinal herbs in the herbal book. Whoever brought back the most number of herbs and ranked higher would be considered the winner. The first 3 winners would be rewarded with points. At the same time, the last 3 would have their points deducted as punishment. There were no restrictions. You could form a team of 2 or 3. It was up to you. In the end, it would only depend on the results. Chapter 344. Before the start, everyone was given a herbal book, which recorded some of the more difficult to find herbs in Baiji Mountain. They had to search according to the herbs in the book. Moreover, they had to be fresh. Whether they were recently picked or not, they could tell at a glance. The two of you listen up. Ling Yin came forward with 2 books in his hand and handed them to Li Zhongjiu and Kuan Erishur. Although there are only 2 people in our class, I don't want our class to be ranked lower than the others. You know what I mean? The threat in his eyes was self-evident. There were a total of 16 classes. The class with the least number of people was the first year of Tiangong Department's Class A. Only Li Zhongjiu and Kuan Erishur were in the class. However, in the other classes, there were more or less 30 people in each class. Some of them had even more. The second class with the least number of people was the second year of Tiangong Department's Class A. But there were 4 of them, and they were all seniors. With such a terrifying difference in numbers, how were they going to fight for victory? This was simply an impossible task. Kuan Erishur was preparing to analyze the impossible situation for Ling Yin. This allowed Ling Yin to understand the situation clearly. Otherwise, he would really think that the 2 of them were immortals. However, Ling Yan's gaze was fixed on Kuan Erishur. Within his gentle gaze, there was also a hint of death. If Kuan Erishur really said those words, he would probably be kicked again. I'll do my best, I'll do my best, Kuan Erishur immediately said with a smile. There was a trace of stubbornness and determination on his face. He had to persevere. If the 2 of you can get first place, I can guarantee that I'll give you a chance to enter the forbidden area before the end of the first half of the semester. You don't need to rely on your ranking on the Pill Alchemist ranking. Ling Yin took a step forward and said in a low voice. Originally, Li Zhongjiu didn't care at all. He didn't come here to look for medicinal ingredients, but to borrow the fire attribute essence energy here to break through his ancient golden tyrannical body art. But when he heard Ling Yan's words, even Li Zhongjiu's eyelids twitched. Hit the snake where it hurts. Ling Yan's words hit Li Zhongjiu right where it hurt. This was exactly what Li Zhongjiu had been dreaming of. Really? Li Zhongjiu asked for the first time. The longing in his eyes was not an act. Ling Yin also laughed heartily in his heart. He was secretly pleased with himself. Looks like it's not that unmanageable. I thought that you were really stubborn. From the looks of it now, it was only SOSO. Of course, I'm your form teacher. How could I lie to you? Ling Yin said proudly. Since he said it out loud, he naturally had the confidence to do it. Otherwise, wouldn't he be throwing his face? Kuan Arashi's breathing became hurried. He thought that it would take at least a year to enter the alchemist ranking. After all, there were so many geniuses, and some of them were even more talented than Kuan Erishur. In addition, the alchemist ranking was basically filled with the 4th years. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to break through. Therefore, the fastest way to enter the forbidden area of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor would take at least a year or even 2. If Ling Yin really had a way, it could only mean that Ling Yin was really powerful. Everyone wanted to enter the forbidden area to comprehend it properly. Anyone who entered the forbidden area would gain something. Unless you were a complete idiot that couldn't be saved. But such a person wouldn't have the chance to enter the forbidden area. Alright, it's decided then. Li Zhongjiu said. Good luck, hehe. Ling Yin patted the shoulders of the 2 and revealed a scheming smile. How could it be so easy to get first place? Moreover, the opportunity to enter the forbidden area was only an opportunity. It wasn't a guarantee that one would be able to enter. As long as one was an outstanding student, they would have this opportunity. There were 2 outstanding students in each class, and there were only 2 people in their class. No matter what, it would be the 2 of them. In fact, these things were clearly written in the manual of the academy. However, some people were arrogant and didn't look at it. Therefore, they often missed out on some benefits of the academy. The group in front had already set off. Some people wanted to cultivate alone, while others wanted to get a good result. One could see it in the crowd. The new students were all walking at the back. Mo Su Li and the others were more eye-catching, and they were surrounded by a large group of people. It was as if they were waiting for instructions. Mu Qingyan also loyally guarded Mo Su Li's side. They were all from the A class of the Earth branch. Clearly, their teachers had told them that if they could get a good result this time, they would have the chance to enter the forbidden area, or some other kind of resources and inducements. Li Zongjio had seen the teacher, in charge of the A class of the Earth branch before. It was Yang Xuelin. Let's split up here. Pay attention to your safety. Those people definitely won't give up so easily. Kuan Erisher said to Li Zongjio. He was also worried that Li Zongjio would be killed in a while. If that happened, it would be too tragic. Although they were all from the same academy, it was hard to say what would happen. Yes, you should be careful too. Li Zongjio said. They didn't plan to move together. The two of them had their own secrets. Kuan Erisher also didn't want his secret to be known by others. It was fine to play together, but it wasn't so good to cultivate together. The two of them chose to split up. Li Zongjio didn't even think, as he rushed towards the mountain peak. His figure was like a gust of wind sweeping away fallen leaves. In the blink of an eye, he was already hundreds of meters away. Follow that brat. Don't let him run away. Morong Jian immediately said. At this moment, they were already prepared for this. They were now at the foot of the Baiji mountain. Just the surrounding temperature was enough to make it difficult for people of the Yuan Master realm to move. Fortunately, these people were able to reach the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Most of them were at the Yuan General realm. Those who were more talented, and walked at the forefront of the cultivation world, were those who could reach the Yuan Ancestor realm. Although the strength of these freshmen hadn't been revealed yet. Mo Suli and Mu Qingyan were most likely experts of the Yuan Ancestor realm. As freshmen, their strength was catching up to the seniors. In addition, there were two even more monstrous geniuses, Li Zongjio and Kuan Erisher. This outdoor training would definitely be very exciting. That guy who stole my cauldron, I finally found you. Just as Shueihua was walking, she suddenly saw Li Zongjio flash past her, and rushed towards the mountain peak. What a guy! This caused Shueihua to become excited. She had long wanted to find this guy and take revenge. No matter what, this Li Zongjio had embarrassed her. So she had to make this Li Zongjio lose face. At this moment, Shueihua gave up on looking for herbs and directly chased after Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's speed was very fast, and the surrounding temperature had also risen to a terrifying level. The ground in this area seemed to be close to flat ground, which meant that the altitude was getting higher and higher. At this moment, Li Zongjio was at an extremely high place. There's a good hiding place up ahead. Li Zongjio searched the area and found a stone array. The stone array was able to gather the surrounding temperature. This place is filled with fire elemental energy. Even a Sky Origin Ancestor level expert would find it difficult to last for an incense stick's worth of time here. Li Zongjio felt that the temperature of his skin was rapidly rising. Even so, Li Zongjio still did not use his own elemental energy, but used his physical strength to resist the surrounding temperature. Within the stone array, a natural defensive shield was formed. Li Zongjio sat down cross-legged. He quickly activated the body elemental technique and sucked in the surrounding fire elemental energy. When the fire elemental energy entered his skin, he immediately felt a piercing pain. This piercing pain made Li Zongjio grimace. In the past, it felt like knives were scraping his body. But now, it felt more like red-hot iron rods rolling back and forth on his body. Chapter 345. Shueihua chased for a long time, but Li Zongjio's figure had long disappeared. She was surrounded by barren mountain roads, and the high temperature was spreading all over her body. However, Shueihua's body seemed to be surrounded by a cold aura that helped her resist the high temperature. Damn it, is that guy a rabbit? He disappeared all of a sudden. Shueihua was also stomping her feet in anger. Just as she was getting angry, she suddenly saw a mushroom-like thing slowly emerging from under a rock not far away. Hey, I'm so lucky. Isn't this the iron rock mushroom? Shueihua excitedly picked up the small iron shovel in her hand and ran to the bottom of the rock to dig. The iron rock mushroom was a kind of medicinal herb that was difficult to find. It was also one of the top 20 rare medicinal herbs in the herbal medicine booklet. This herbal booklet was actually a ranking of the rare herbs in Mount Baiji. Those herbs that could be listed in this booklet basically had some background. Currently, some of them had been discovered by others, and some of them could only be seen from afar, and could not be approached. They were also listed on the booklet. It was very difficult to find the top 10, so it was a very good harvest to be able to find the top 20 iron rock mushrooms. It was currently ranked first, and was the most precious medicinal herb that had been discovered. It was called the Scarlet White Lotus. The place where this kind of refinement took place would be a sea of blood, and at the same time, a hell of heavenly fire. Even if one got close to the Scarlet White Lotus, one would fall into the terrifying hell of the Scarlet White Lotus. In the end, many people would be obliterated by the Scarlet White Lotus. This was not only a spiritual medicine, but also a spiritual medicine that could kill people like scything flax. Even if you saw this spiritual medicine, if you did not have enough strength to pick it, then it was best not to go near it. After all, this was not a joke with one's life. Many people were self-confident, and when they found the Scarlet White Lotus, they would often be carried away by it. Therefore, they would rush blindly and lose their lives. Li Zongjiu cultivated in the same place for nearly 6 hours. It was now noon. The temperature was also higher. His skin was instantly scorching hot, as if he was a cooked lobster. No, I'm still a little short. Li Zongjiu's skin had already begun to crack and peel. Under such high temperatures, there was no way to directly recover. Therefore, he had always maintained this state. Keep going up. They were less than 500 meters away from the top of the mountain. If one climbed over the top of the mountain and reached the core of White Blaze Mountain, the temperature would reach a terrifying level. Even Yuan monarchs would not want to stay in such an environment for long. 10,000 meters above the incandescent mountain pass, there was no rain at all. Once any water got close to this place, it would be directly burned away. It evaporated without a trace. Li Zongjiu stood up and continued to walk towards the top of the mountain. This time, he advanced another 100 meters. Compared to the previous temperature, after advancing another 100 meters, the temperature was almost twice the original temperature. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment, Li Zongjiu felt that his internal organs were burning fiercely, as if they were about to melt. As for his clothes, they had long been burned away. Li Zongjiu used his yuan power to cover the important parts. Otherwise, he would become an exhibitionist. Let's continue. Li Zongjiu's entire body was charred black, and no part of his body was intact. With every step he took, his entire body felt like it was being torn apart. This kind of pain also made Li Zongjiu feel a strong desire to break through during this process. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. The ancient golden body of the tyrant dragon was constantly converting the damage it received into power. However, this power had been lingering in his body all this time. Even when he recovered his strength, it wasn't enough for him to consume. He could not make ends meet. Therefore, Li Zongjiu's entire body was still being burned by the fire attribute yuan power. The obsidian flame seemed to have sensed the scorching heat of the surrounding environment, and actually joined in the absorption of the fire attributed yuan energy. Li Zongjiu's body, which was the carrier, also suffered extremely terrifying damage. Plop! Just as he was about to reach the top of the mountain, Li Zongjiu could not hold it in and fainted. Without using the slightest bit of elemental energy, and just relying on the strength of his body, he was definitely a man to be able to walk to this place. How many people would not be able to reach this place? Even if a Sky Origin Ancestor level expert used his yuan power to maintain his condition, he would not be able to last more than a few hours in such a hot environment. However, fainting in such a place was naturally an extremely dangerous thing to do. This was because there was a high chance that one would not be able to survive. Not far from where Li Zongjiu had fainted, one could see that a white lotus was quietly blooming. Although this lotus was white, its stem was as red as blood. It was quietly extending towards the place where Li Zongjiu had fainted. It was prepared to absorb Li Zongjiu's fresh blood when Li Zongjiu was completely dead. This way it could become its own nourishment. A stem slowly emerged from the ground and slowly wrapped around Li Zongjiu's body. Sacred Flame Royal City, Lone Moon Palace. Yi Lone Moon had already signed the order for the Hidden Moon Guards to move out. At this moment, 15 Hidden Moon Guards were kneeling on one knee in front of Yi Lone Moon. In their eyes there was only loyalty. As long as Yi Lone Moon ordered them to kill someone, they would move out to kill that person at any time. This was a realm that ordinary people could achieve. They were a group of death warriors that Yi Longmoon had raised. They could often help them to solve some difficult and complicated diseases. Listen up, all of you. I don't have enough patience anymore. Tonight, I want to see Li Zhongjio's corpse placed in front of me. I have already informed the Vermilion Bird Army. You can only attack on Incandescent Mountain. Once you leave Incandescent Mountain, you can't attack. Do you hear me clearly? Yi Longmoon said. After so many days, they were still unable to remove Beiho Liang and Li Zhongjio's heads. Yi Longmoon could not even lift his head in front of Yi Lantian. Yes, Master. The 15 Hidden Moon Guards shouted. After the Hidden Moon Guards retreated, another group of people dressed in green walked out. These people were all experts, but they were disguised as such. Usually, they did not move out much, but they were all veterans and their faces were unfamiliar. Beiho Liang will go and meet his lover tonight. You know what to do. There was a knife above the word lust. For a disciple of an aristocratic family like Beiho Liang, he was rich and had connections. It was not a problem for him to casually raise a few girls in the city. After Yi Longmoon found out about this, he quickly took control of Beiho Liang's favorite mistress and made her invite Beiho Liang to come out. The matters in the city, Yi Longmoon had already informed his elder sister about this. No one can stop me. The Yi family's great cause will be mine. Yi Longmoon turned the teacup in his hand. Finally, he squeezed the teacup in his hand, and a series of cracking sounds were heard. Chapter 346. Li Zhongjio seemed to be in a muddle-headed state at this moment. Suddenly, he felt a clear current surging through his body. This was the feeling of breaking through one's limit. It was like a very stubborn piece of cowhide that was constantly being pushed back. Suddenly, the limit of the cowhide was broken. It was this feeling of enlightenment that immediately woke Li Zhongjio up from his muddle-headed state. Boom! Suddenly, a large amount of new energy gushed out from the almost dried-up source and poured into Li Zhongjio's body, flowing into every part of his body. His entire body was once again glowing with vitality. When Li Zhongjio opened his eyes, he found that he could not move. It turned out that he was entangled by some blood-rot tan that came from nowhere. It was also these blood-rot tan that gave Li Zhongjio the final blow. At the most critical moment, it directly caused great damage to Li Zhongjio. That was why Li Zhongjio was able to break through his limit. Otherwise, who knew how long it would take for him to break through this realm? Where did this thing come from? Li Zhongjio immediately snorted. The blood-rot tan seemed to have realized that Li Zhongjio had woken up. Immediately, the rot tan suddenly tightened, wanting to crush Li Zhongjio directly. However, there was no chance now. Li Zhongjio, who had reacted, immediately released all the energy in his body and instantly shattered the blood-rot tan. Boom! The blood-rot tan exploded into pieces that filled the sky. Some of the blood-rot tan's fresh red juice was sprinkled on Li Zhongjio's body. This juice originally had an extremely high temperature, even more terrifying than magma. However, when it fell on Li Zhongjio's body, it did not even ignite a single strand of his hair. This was because Li Zhongjio's current physical strength had far exceeded the temperature that could melt it. It could not hurt Li Zhongjio. I've broken through. This feels pretty good. But what is this thing? Li Zhongjio saw the blood vine fragments on the ground. He picked up a small piece and sniffed it. There was a faint smell of blood, but at the same time, there was a holy aura. This thing looks familiar. Li Zhongjio immediately took out a small booklet from his bosom. When he flipped it open, he saw the blazing blood white lotus ranked first. Evil on the outside but holy on the inside. What an image! Your so-called holiness is all from the height of the accumulation of blood. It seemed that there were indeed countless treasures on the incandescent mountain. He had found the incandescent white lotus so quickly. Although the blazing white lotus was a plant, it could move freely on blazing mountain with its roots. It was just that its speed was a little slow. However, it was able to conceal its aura, making it impossible for people to find it. By the time Li Zhongjio chased after it again, the blazing blood white lotus had already disappeared without a trace. Trying to escape in front of me. Li Zhongjio grabbed a handful of soil on the ground. His mind power instantly penetrated the ground and immediately found the roots of the blazing blood-white lotus. Previously, these blood vines had wanted to absorb Li Zongjiu as nutrients. However, the sudden increase in damage had already prevented Li Zongjiu from breaking through the limits of the ancient golden tyrannical body technique. Now, Li Zongjiu's physical strength alone was enough to fight against a Yuanzong elite. Compared to his previous life, it was still a little lacking. In his previous life, Li Zongjiu had refined a Daluo Vajra elixir for himself. After consuming it, his physical strength had soared rapidly and directly broken through the limits of his mortal body. His physical body had the strength of a Yuan monarch elite. However, Li Zongjiu was different now. His physical strength had been honed bit by bit. Therefore, during this process, the power accumulated in Li Zongjiu's body was innumerable. In other words, there was already a lot of hidden potential in Li Zongjiu's body. If it were to erupt, it would be a terrifying level. Just as Li Zongjiu was chasing after the blazing blood-white lotus in the valley, there was also a group of people who were quietly moving forward despite the high temperature. The person leading the group was a woman. She was only wearing a special singlet and a pair of shorts. Her slender legs and forearms were exposed, and her skin was dark brown. Her face was covered with a cloth to help her breathe. If she breathed in the surrounding air directly, it would be too hot. If she breathed it in, it would definitely harm her internal organs. There were 5 people behind her, all of them holding pickaxes and carrying a special rattan basket. "Survey the surroundings," the woman said. She stood on a rock and looked around. At this moment, they seemed to be in the middle of a furnace. There was a dagger at the woman's waist. The dagger was completely black, but it was able to reveal a trace of light. Even in such a hot environment, there was no change. One could even see the cold light emitting from the dagger. Someone used a pickaxe to dig a hole in the ground and grabbed a handful of soil, trying to find some information through the soil. "It's nearby. Be careful. The polar rock snake is extremely good at camouflage." "Yes, Captain." As soon as the words left his mouth, the entire ground began to tremble. The 6 of them immediately became vigilant. Then, they saw the ground burst open, and a terrifying figure instantly emerged from the ground. It opened its bloody mouth and bit at one of them. "It's a level 4 polar rock snake. Everyone be careful," the woman shouted. She instantly pulled out the dagger at her waist and chased after the polar rock snake. Boom! The few of them immediately engaged in a chaotic battle with the polar rock snake. The person who was targeted and bitten at the beginning was also rescued by others. If he had been a step late, he might have been eaten by the polar rock snake. "I've been waiting for you for so long." There was a trace of excitement in the woman's eyes. A flame suddenly curled up from the dagger. Terrifying fire elemental energy instantly covered her entire body, bringing her along as she charged forward. Boom! The instant the figure moved, the polar rock snake also began to roll, causing dust to soar into the sky. Such a terrifying attack caused the girl to be shocked. If not for her powerful Yuan power, she would have long been crushed by the polar rock snake. On the mountain top, Li Zongjiu also slowly walked towards the valley. The blood vines of the blazing blood-white lotus were spreading in this direction. However, before he could find the blazing blood-white lotus, Li Zongjiu heard a violent vibration. It was accompanied by a series of low roars. Someone is fighting with a meta-beast? Logically speaking, where there are meta-beasts, there should be something like a guardian elixir. Thinking of this, Li Zongjiu also excitedly chased in the direction of the sound. The opportunity that Ling Yin mentioned was very important to Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu was also very lucky to have broken through the ancient golden tyrant body technique on the first day. In the next 2 days, he could also properly train. First, he had to test his body's strength. The control of one's own strength was also very important. Being able to encounter a local meta-beast, Li Zongjiu was also impatient to come into contact with it. After breaking through, the surrounding temperature was no longer a problem for Li Zongjiu. Hence, Li Zongjiu's original route was also to head towards the depths of the valley. Whoosh! When Li Zongjiu's figure rushed downwards, a yellow rat emerged from the ground. A khaki-colored rat crawled out from the crack in the ground. When it saw the direction that Li Zongjiu was heading in, It immediately ran down the mountain. Very quickly, it fell into the hands of a black-clothed man. In an instant the black-clothed man heard it. After chattering for a while, the black-clothed man looked in the direction of the valley. Found a chase. Whoosh! Over 10 figures immediately erupted with terrifying speed and force at this moment. Boom! Chapter 347. Inside the valley. Rocks flew everywhere. Suemo gritted his teeth in anger when he saw that his team members had been seriously injured. The 3 of you take the wounded and retreat. Taihua, you and I will kill this guy. A man called Taihua immediately carried an iron rod in his hand. The iron rod spun in the air and immediately blocked some of the flying rocks. Got it. Taihua first covered the 3 of them as they retreated with the wounded. Then, he carried the terrifying firepower of the iron rod in his hand and went around the polar rock snake. He leaped and smashed the iron rod on the head of the polar rock snake. Clang! The flames on the iron rod immediately dissipated. The polar rock snake's body defense was too strong. It could be said that it was invulnerable. Only Sumo's dagger could scratch the polar rock snake. The other people's weapons, and even Yuan Li, could not cause the slightest damage to the polar rock snake. Boom! The polar rock snake rolled over and pressed the iron pestle under its body, smashing it into the ground. Cough, cough, cough. Taihua was seriously injured. Seeing this, Sumo's figure also flew up. The dagger in his hand immediately turned into a ray of light and swept towards the head of the polar rock snake. Swoosh! Bang! The polar rock snake's head was hit by the dagger. However, this little bit of damage was not even a scratch to it. On the other hand, Suemo had directly lost a sharp weapon, so it was impossible for him to injure this terrifying fellow by relying solely on his origin energy. At this moment he could only retreat. Go! Suemo carried Taihua. Taihua's sternum was broken. At this moment, he was able to open his eyes because of his training. Otherwise he would have fainted. No, Captain, I can't escape. Hurry up and go. I'll hold it back, Taihua said firmly. At the same time, he pointed at a pitch-black iron ball in his hand. Lightning palm. Once thrown, the area within a radius of 5 feet would be covered by terrifying iron pieces. There was no place to escape. No, I will never give up on my team members, Suemo immediately said. However, the polar rock snake wouldn't listen to their conversation. Immediately, it rose to a height of nearly 100 meters. Then, it smashed down towards Suemo and his companion. Damn it! This move was unavoidable. Could it be that Suemo really wanted to abandon his companions? This was absolutely impossible. She would never let such a thing happen. Get out of here! Suemo grabbed the iron rod by the collar and threw it out. The thunder palm was also caught in Sumo's hand. She had already made up her mind that once this fellow landed, she would perish together with it. So, Suemo had already made up his mind to die. But all of a sudden, a strong gust of wind swept past the top of his head, and a figure appeared above him. What? A trace of surprise flashed across Sumo's eyes. The figure that rushed out seemed to be unafraid of death, as it crashed into the polar rock snake. At this speed, not only will the polar rock snake not suffer any damage, but its internal organs will also be damaged by the shock. Suemo could already see Li Zongjio being smashed into a pile of meat paste. Immediately, he couldn't help but lower his head. If he were to become a pile of meat paste in an instant, it would be too miserable. However, Suemo guessed wrong. Li Zongjio, who was flying over, crashed into the polar rock snake's abdomen with a boom. Immediately, the polar rock snake's body fell backward. Obviously, it was knocked over by Li Zongjio. After the collision, Li Zongjio's feet lightly tapped on the air. Once again he rose into the air, raised his fist, and directly smashed towards the polar rock snake's head. Boom! Boom! Suemo stood there in a daze. He didn't even have time to throw out the thunder palm in his hand. All he could see was that the polar rock snake was being violently beaten up by Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's fist wind was swift and fierce. His fist hit the dagger stuck in the snake's head. Bang! The dagger directly pierced through the polar rock snake's head and came out from its chin. The dagger actually penetrated the polar rock snake's head. Whoosh! The dagger fell to the ground not far from Suemo. When Suemo saw this scene, he was so shocked that his mouth was wide open. This was simply too ferocious. Suddenly, the polar rock snake's body, which was nearly 150 meters long, rose into the air and left the ground. Then, it made a circle in the air and fiercely fell down. Boom! As he fell, the entire incandescent mountain seemed to shake. Such a terrifying scene. Such a shocking scene. Suemo couldn't believe it for a long time. Tai Qiao, who was lying on the ground, also opened his eyes wide in surprise. Could it be that the mighty ape god is the reincarnation? After falling to the ground, the polar rock snake had already been smashed into pieces. Li Zongjiu glanced at his fist. This is a little more fierce than I thought. Previously, Li Zongjiu had estimated his strength roughly. In terms of strength, he estimated that there wasn't much difference between him and the polar rock snake. They should be in a stalemate. Li Zongjiu was worried that he would be defeated by the polar rock snake. However, when his fist landed, he immediately felt that the body of the polar rock snake was as soft as a piece of cotton. It didn't even have the slightest resistance. One punch was enough to seriously injure the polar rock snake. Li Zongjiu's ancient golden tyrant body technique had just broken through to the 3rd level. It actually achieved such an effect. Judging from the latter's aura, the polar rock snake should be at the 4th grade origin ancestor realm. In other words, it was a middle rank 4 origin beast. However, as the latter grew up in White Blaze Mountain, the strength it possessed was much greater, and its defense was even more terrifying. It was much stronger than an ordinary rank 4 middle grade Yuan beast, and could even be compared to a rank 4 high grade Yuan beast. Suemo was only at the 3rd grade origin ancestor realm. Being able to fight with the polar rock snake until now was already pretty good. However, it would be difficult to kill the polar rock snake just by relying on such a fierce fighting style. If Li Zongjiu hadn't arrived in time, Suemo would have been dead. With one punch, the polar rock snake's head defense had been smashed. Then, Li Zongjiu grabbed the rank 4 origin crystal from the polar rock snake's head. This item alone was worth a lot of money, and could be used to refine some effective elixirs. That darn thing should be nearby. Li Zongjiu leaped and landed in front of Suemo. When Suemo saw that the person who came was actually a teenager, his eyes went blank for a moment. This wasn't a dream, right? The person who beat up a rank 4 soul beast, like it was a monkey, was actually this fair-skinned young man in front of him? After the breakthrough, Li Zongjiu's skin had also undergone a transformation. Although it wasn't too fair to Suemo and the others, he was a real fair-skinned teenager. Li Zongjiu was also attracted by Suemo's healthy figure. With Li Zongjiu's experience, he had seen all kinds of beauties. However, when he saw Suemo's healthy figure and the slightly bulging muscles on his body, he was attracted to him. There didn't seem to be any extra fat on his body. He had such a healthy physique, yet he was wearing so little. How could anyone not look at him? Have you seen this flower before? Li Zongjiu opened the herbal booklet in his hand. It depicted the appearance of the blazing blood white lotus. Are you looking for the blazing blood white lotus? Suemo lived in the blazing blood mountain, so he naturally knew about the blazing blood white lotus. Have you seen it before? No, I haven't. The blazing blood white lotus is invisible. Once you approach it, you will be controlled by it and become a walking corpse. Suemo explained succinctly. This was to tell Li Zongjiu how terrifying this thing was. Although Li Zongjiu's strength seemed to be good, it was still not enough to deal with the blazing blood white lotus. In the past, even a Yuan King level elite had almost lost his life to this thing. He had had no choice but to retreat. If he hadn't left, he probably wouldn't have been able to. Thanks. Li Zongjiu turned around and walked away. Since she didn't know, he could only search for it himself. Wait a minute. Suemo called out to Li Zongjiu. Can you sell me the Yuan crystals you have? This time, they were hunting the polar rock snake, precisely for the crystal of the polar rock snake. With the Yuan crystals of the polar rock snake, their entire team would be able to break through. Therefore, the Yuan crystals were very important to them. I can pay you 1 million gold yuan, but I have to pay you in 3 months. I don't have any money now. Chapter 348. 1 million gold yuan. For Li Zongjio, who already had 100 million gold yuan, this amount of money was of no use at all. However, the most important thing was that the yuan crystal in his hand was definitely worth more than 1 million gold yuan. According to purple yuan, it wouldn't be a problem even if it was sold for 3 or 4 million purple yuan. After all, this kind of special yuan crystal had a higher value. If the price was agreed upon, then it would be fine. However, he actually said that he would pay after 3 months. Just based on the current situation, who knew how many changes were happening every day? Some people might not even be able to survive after 3 months. Now that he had given it to him, what would he do if he ran away? Therefore, this was a very inconceivable deal. In fact, even Suemo himself didn't dare to believe it when he said it. That yuan crystal might be very precious to people like Li Zongjio, but it wasn't necessary. However, for Suemo, it was very precious and very hard to come by. Their team had spent nearly a month searching in the Baiji Mountains in order to find the polar rock snake. Even though they knew that their chances of winning were very low, they still fought with their lives on the line. From this, one could see how important this yuan crystal was to them. Li Zongjio didn't directly leave. Instead, he turned around and glanced at Suemo. Suemo's heart moved. It seemed that there was still room for discussion. He was just afraid that Li Zongjio would ignore them. If that was the case, then there was no room for discussion. Just based on the performance just now, Li Zongjio could kill them all with one hand. Even if he stood there and let them attack him, he probably wouldn't be able to defeat them. Who are you people? Li Zongjio asked. We are the Vermilion Bird Army, Suemo said. When he said this, Suemo's heart was filled with pride. However, he didn't tell Li Zongjio the number of the army. This was considered a military secret. Whoosh! Li Zongjio threw the item over to Suemo. After Suemo caught it, his face was filled with disbelief. Feeling the vigorous energy released from the object in his hand, Suemo's heart was shocked. Was this the polar rock snake's crystal? Sure enough, it was filled with terrifying energy. It was amazing. Such power. However, since Li Zongjio had given the crystal to her so easily, there must be a condition. I trust the reputation of the Vermilion Bird Army. Other than the 1 million, I want you to help me find medicinal ingredients. Bring me all the precious medicinal ingredients that have appeared around here. Li Zongjio said. He was not a saint, and this was merely a transaction. Although he didn't care for 1 million gold coins, it wasn't a small amount, so he wasn't willing to give it up. In addition, since the other party was the Vermilion Bird Army, then the Vermilion Bird Army was stationed near White Blaze Mountain. They must be more familiar with White Blaze Mountain than Li Zongjio. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to find the polar rock snake so accurately and follow it all the way here. In order to increase efficiency, Li Zongjio didn't mind losing some. After all, the polar rock snake's crystal didn't have much use for him. However, for an alchemist, it was beneficial to collect more of these things. No problem. Suemo immediately agreed. You want to find medicinal ingredients? Are you an alchemist? Or an alchemist? Suemo looked at Li Zongjio in surprise. At such a young age, not only was his battle strength strong, but he also knew how to refine pills. If that was the case, then wouldn't he be a monstrous existence? Cough cough. Taihua was also helped up by Suemo. After obtaining this crystal, the two of them didn't know how grateful they were to Li Zongjio. Moreover, if it wasn't for Li Zongjio's help, then they probably would have died here today. Just this life-saving grace alone was already difficult for them to repay. I'm from the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, Li Zongjio said. Looking at the injured Taihua, he flicked his finger, and a third-grade healing pill fell into his hand. These pills were all casually refined by Li Zongjio. They were all made from leftover materials. After reaching a certain level of cultivation, doing these things casually would be more effective than some people going all out. Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. I didn't expect him to be a great talent from the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Sumo's eyes suddenly lit up. The Heavenly Star Medicine Manor had considerable prestige among these soldiers. If it weren't for the fact that their alchemists had been attached to the rear during the expedition, which guaranteed them absolute medical care. No one would have been so foolish as to rush out and risk their lives like that. There would always be some students from the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor who would join the army. They were really capable, but some of them had bad tempers. But for those who were capable, there was no problem with a bad temper. Since everyone was considered as one of them, then Suemo didn't need to be too reserved. This is a third-grade pill. My God, my God. Tai Hua held the third-grade pill in his hand and smelled the fragrance on it. He almost fainted. This thing was too powerful. It wasn't that Tai Hua was ignorant. He had seen third-grade pills before. However, this kind of thing was only available to the backbone of the army. They had an endless supply of ordinary healing pills. But at this moment, they actually had the opportunity to obtain a third-grade pill. This made Tai Hua extremely touched. I want to have a taste of what a grade 3 medicinal pill tastes like. Tai Hua was extremely touched. If you don't eat it, I'll take it and hand it in. Suemo looked at Tai Hua, who was reluctant to put it in his mouth for a long time, and couldn't help but laugh. This kid was really naughty, but as Sumo's team members, they had suffered too much. That was the reason why Suemo wanted to win this competition. Hey little brother, you've helped me so much. I won't let you suffer. We've explored more than half of the White Blaze Mountain in a month. I'll lead the way. I guarantee you'll have a bountiful harvest. Suemo said. All right, I'll give you half an hour to recover. After half an hour, we'll set off. Li Zongjio said. Lend me your dagger for a while. Suemo casually threw his treasured dagger to Li Zongjio. Could it be that he was afraid that Li Zongjio would snatch it away? This was a 4th-grade Metabeast's crystal, and now it was a 3rd-grade pill. Both of them were very valuable. Even if he took his dagger away, it wouldn't be worth it. That was why Suemo thought so. He was very relieved and threw the dagger to Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio held the dagger in his hand and ran to the front of the polar rock snake. From Sumo's angle, it was very obvious that he opened the mouth of the polar rock snake and walked in. So alchemist is such a profession. Suemo saw Li Zongjio's actions and couldn't help but exclaim. Li Zongjio only took the gallbladder of the polar rock snake. Originally, he didn't want it. However, the gallbladder of this thing should be good. In the future, it would be somewhat useful when refining pills. Li Zongjio's trip this time wouldn't be in vain. Half an hour later, the sky had turned dark. Tai Hua, who had been recovering from his injuries, stood up very excitedly at this moment with a surprised expression on his face. Holy shit, my injuries are all healed. Not only that, I also feel that my strength has increased by 3 levels. My eyesight seems to be better. Damn, this is simply a divine pill. Tai Hua couldn't believe it. This medicinal pill could actually bring about such great benefits. He even felt that his blood and chi were now vigorous. He couldn't wait to run 8 or 10 laps around the White Blaze Mountain to exercise and vent. You're showing off. That guy has been in the snake's stomach for half an hour. Don't tell me he suffocated to death. Just when Suemo was about to go forward to check, he happened to see the stomach of the polar rock snake suddenly bulging. Then, Li Zongjio opened a hole and walked out. It's about time. Let's go. Where did you find this polar rock snake? Chapter 349. Even though Li Zongjio's body wasn't dirty after staying in the snake's stomach for a while because of the protection of his yuan qi, the smell was indeed a little heavy. At first, Suemo didn't know why Li Zongjio stayed in the snake's stomach for so long. It was only later that they found out that Li Zongjio had been analyzing the things that the snake had eaten in its stomach. Then, based on the things that the snake had eaten, he determined what the polar rock snake had eaten in the vicinity, and what might be growing there. The incandescent mountain was very wide. Just the height alone was more than a few hundred feet. The area it covered, in addition to the evolution of the mountain's terrain, was naturally very terrifying. Therefore, it was very convenient for Li Zongjio to have someone to lead the way. Over here. Suemo really admired Li Zongjio. The 3 of them set off. Along the way, Suemo and Tai Chi also displayed the strength of the Vermilion Bird Army. In such a hot place, they were still able to bring out 100% of their mental state. They often landed on the ground to explore and find their way. Night fell. Even though there was no sun, the temperature of the incandescent mountain didn't drop. Instead, it gave people a very stuffy feeling. It was as if the entire incandescent mountain was a very large steamer. Everyone inside was in a very stuffy state. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. 15 figures quickly flashed past. Previously, they had compared Li Zongjio's route, so they also landed in front of a canyon and set up an ambush here. The heat avoidance pills we have can only last for 2 hours. In half an hour, we must take care of Li Zongjio and return at full speed. The leader of the Hidden Moon Guard said. The experts behind him were also in high spirits. In order to be able to move freely in the incandescent mountain, they had to pay a huge price. They had also paid a great price. One heat avoidance pill could last for 10 hours, but as they went deeper, the effect of the heat avoidance pill became weaker and weaker. They had to take more. Therefore, in the next hour, if they could not cripple Li Zongjio, they would be the ones to die. He's here. Up ahead, a figure was walking on the path. Although the path was pitch black, the appearance of this person instantly attracted the attention of all the Hidden Moon Guards. Even under the night sky, Holy Yin City still appeared lively and glorious. In a rather secluded pavilion, a woman in a white dress had been waiting for a long time. Suddenly, a man stuck his head out from behind a nearby wall and waved at the woman in front of him. Little you, Brother Liang. The woman turned around and was pleasantly surprised when she saw Beiho Liang. Beiho Liang was also looking left and right. Then he carefully walked up to Xiaoya. Xiaoyu, what's wrong? Why did you call me out so urgently? Is your father's illness getting worse? I'll give you 100,000 gold coins. Take it first, Beiho Liang said. Then, he took out a stack of bank notes from his sleeve and stuffed it into Xiaoyu's hand. No, Brother Liang. Xiaoya wanted to say something, but it was too late. Whoosh, whoosh. Several figures jumped down from the pavilion. They held a shiny long blade in their hands. When they landed, they did not say anything and directly rushed toward Beiho Liang. When Beiho Liang saw this, he immediately pushed Xiaoyu away. Shit! After Xiaoya was pushed away, her body was directly pierced through by a blade. The sharp white blade in her chest was bleeding. Xiaoya's body slowly fell and was quickly pushed to the side. Beiho Liang wanted to escape, but he realized that he was already surrounded. There was no way out. Don't kill me. How much money do you want? I'll give it to you. Beiho Liang knew that he was going to die, but there was no other way. His strong desire to live made him want to struggle. Even if he was a student of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor. Even if he was a young master of a family in Black North Giant City. In Black North Giant City, he was nothing. If he offended the nobles, they had countless ways to make him disappear. Or even disappear without a trace. Beiho Liang took a wrong step. When he touched the sun, when he started to have a grudge with Li Zongjio, he was already dead. This time, whether he went to White Blaze Mountain or not, his end was the same. The leader of the black-clothed men walked forward. With a wave of his blade, he chopped off Beiho Liang's head. Bang! Beiho Liang's head rolled on the ground, blood splattering everywhere. This young master, who could call the wind and summon the rain in Black North Giant City, became a corpse without any struggle. Before he died, he did not even leave behind any last words. Even if Beiho Liang's family really came to investigate this matter, when they started to investigate, they would know how big Beiho Liang's family was. They would know how big of a trouble Beiho Liang had encountered. At that time, they would naturally shrink back. If they wanted to confront the Yi clan head-on, then they would have to wait for their clan to be exterminated. The Yi family had lost one person. They only lost one person from the Bei family. That was already too easy for them. If they could not back down, even if they destroyed the entire Bei family, they would have nothing to say. Want to resist? Haha, sorry, you can think about it. Take away the head, burn the body, and throw the rest into the river. The leader said. Immediately, someone walked forward and used a piece of black cloth to wrap Beiho Liang's head. The rest of the body was poured into a pile of white powder. The white powder instantly ignited the body. It was colorless and odorless. The entire process of killing and leaving did not exceed 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, the place was completely clean. When Beihou Liang's head was placed in front of Yi Moon, the bitter face of Yi Moon finally showed a trace of a smile. If I can't even deal with this kind of trash, then I will really become a trash. Yi Moon sneered, then looked in the direction of White Blaze Mountain. Now, he was waiting for Li Zongjiu's head to be placed in front of him. White Blaze Mountain. The leader of the Hidden Moon Guards looked at the body under his feet in disbelief. Just a moment ago, when they were about to ambush Li Zongjiu, two people suddenly charged out from the side. These two people rushed into the camp of the Hidden Moon Guards and instantly reaped the heads of three people, as if they were harvesting chives. The remaining people wanted to attack, but they realized that Li Zongjiu had already rushed up. When they faced Li Zongjiu, they realized what they were facing. When Li Zongjiu attacked, they did not have any room to resist. Looking at the crushed heads on the ground, they knew how terrifying Li Zongjiu's combat power was. Moon, why isn't your name in the information I have? You're not from the Yi family? At this time, all of his subordinates were dead. Only the strongest one was still standing, but his arms had been completely cut off. Two of his arms fell directly to the ground. He did not have any ability to fight back. In front of Li Zongjiu, he did not have any room to resist. Therefore, Li Zongjiu found the token of the Hidden Moon Guards on him. When he saw Li Zongjiu take out a thick book of information, he was shocked. Could it be that this Li Zongjiu was here to deal with the young master? Why isn't there any? Li Zongjiu flipped through the information in his hands. The information that Beihou Liang had given him didn't mention the existence of the Hidden Moon Guards. This meant that the Hidden Moon Guards had either been sent by someone else, or Beihou Liang didn't have the qualifications to come into contact with them. You're the Hidden Moon Guards? People from the Low Moon Mansion? Suemo said in shock when he saw the token in Li Zongjiu's hand. You know them? Suemo walked over and nodded. That's right. The Yi family's second young master, Yi Moon, has a group of private soldiers in his mansion called the Hidden Moon Guards. They have not been mobilized until now. Of course, they have always been under our control. Suemo said. At this moment, it was the captain of the Hidden Moon Guard's turn to be shocked. He never thought that his Hidden Moon Guards, which were so well hidden, would still be found out by the other party. You. Who exactly are you? The Hidden Moon Guards had already guessed that Li Zongjiu was not just a simple country bumpkin. You bunch of hoodlums and bandits. Do you really think that no one knows what you're doing? It's just that it's not time yet. If we want to kill you, our Vermilion Bird Army will move out and kill you in less than 3 days. Chapter 350. The reason why Suemo said this was because the person in front of him was destined to die. It was only now that the Hidden Moon Guards realized how terrifying the power of the imperial family was. The Yi family seemed to be able to cover the sky with one hand, but in reality, even the private soldiers of the Yi family's second young master were under their control. It was just that the Yi family did not need to care about you at the moment. They did not care about you at all. That was why such a situation occurred. They allowed you to develop freely, but everything was under their control. Although the Hidden Moon Guards were rarely deployed, in order to train these Hidden Moon Guards, the people in Loman's residence had done many shady things. That was why Suemo hated these people to the core. This Yi family is really arrogant. Li Zongjiu could not help but shake his head. Li Zongjiu always had the feeling of a tiger being bullied by a dog. However, if this was the case, Li Zongjiu's strength in his previous life was not as good as his current strength at this age. If Li Zongjiu had to face the Yi clan back then, he would have died many times over. But it was different this time. Although I had no enmity with you in my previous life, in this life, you just had to provoke me. Don't worry, the Yi family will accompany you soon. After Li Zongjiu finished speaking, he directly plucked off the head of the Hidden Moon Guards and searched through their storage rings. He realized that other than some clothes, there was not a single cent. The only rich person was the leader, but the money in his hands was only enough to cover the expenses of the entire team for a few days. They were really poor. This is a heat avoidance pill. It can resist the heat of the incandescent mountain. Suemo also found some things. The heat avoidance pill could be considered as a luxury item in this place. It was a consumable item, that needed to be consumed at all times. Usually the consumption of these consumables was very terrifying. You can keep it for yourselves. Li Zongjie waved his hand and said, from the performance just now, it seemed that the Vermilion Bird Army hated these people very much. After all, these people were some of the nobles in the palace. How many of the nobles' deeds were clean? The Vermilion Bird Army was different from other armies. The purpose of their existence was to intimidate the ministers in the imperial court. Although there were also imperial guards in the palace, the imperial guards were more like a bunch of decorations. They were placed there to make a strong impression. Usually, they were used to deal with small thieves and the like. In fact, they couldn't even leave the palace within their jurisdiction. However, the Vermilion Bird Army was different. If they were stationed outside the city, they could send out a signal from within the city, and they would be able to assemble within an hour and provide reinforcements. Furthermore, the outside world did not know much about this mysterious army. How many people were there? What was their average strength? Who was their commander? Those were all very secretive information. Even if you obtained some information, there was no way to verify it. There was no guarantee that the information you obtained was true. The existence of such a team was the biggest threat to these people. The Vermilion Bird Army knew the nobles in the city like the back of their hand and would follow them regularly. Naturally, they knew what these people were doing in the dark. However, they usually didn't have the chance because Suemo and the others were soldiers and couldn't act as they pleased. However, it was different in Mount Baiji. They encountered them by accident, and their main target was Li Zongjie. They only killed these people to protect Li Zongjie. The dignified hidden moon guards couldn't even defeat 3 people. Except for Li Zongjie, Suemo and Tai Ji's fighting strength was also very frightening. They let these people know how powerful the Vermilion Bird Army was. For Li Zongjie, the sudden appearance of the hidden moon guards was only a small interlude. He didn't even need to pay too much attention to them. In his eyes, these assassins were just a bunch of trash. However, these trash had angered the sleeping lion. When the 3 of them arrived in front of a stone valley, they could feel from afar that there was an unusual aura coming from this stone valley. In front of us is the very famous chaotic stone valley. Most people will become deranged after entering it and become a lunatic. Generally, if there are fugitives, we will exile them here. Suemo said. It turned out that the polar rock snake that they were chasing was also discovered in this chaotic stone valley. They had set up an ambush to ambush the polar rock snake, but it didn't work. In the end, Suemo led a small team to chase after it. In the end, they chased after it for a month. They didn't even know that the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor had entered the mountain. Fortunately, Li Zongjie stepped in and pulled them back at the most critical moment. As for this chaotic stone valley, they usually didn't dare to get close to it. Some people didn't believe in heresy, but they usually ended up in a very miserable state. So far, there was no exception. Their Lord Commander came to take a look at this place and directly ordered everyone not to get close to it. It became a forbidden area for the Vermilion Bird Army. Suemo glanced at Tai Chiao. If they entered this chaotic stone valley, they would be violating the military order. Tai Chiao, stay here and help. If anything happens to me, immediately return to the camp. No, Captain. I have to stay by your side and protect you. Tai Chiao hurriedly said. Seeing that Tai Chiao was about to go crazy, Suemo immediately said, if you go in with me and something happens to me, who will go and find help? Tai Chiao stopped after hearing Sumo's words. He thought about it carefully and felt that it made sense. That's right. Then I'll stay here. If anything happens to Captain, immediately release the signal. Tai Chiao said. Good job. Suemo patted Tai Chiao's shoulder and looked at Li Zongjie. He didn't have time to waste with them and directly walked in. When he saw the chaotic stone valley for the first time, Li Zongjie knew this was the place he wanted to come to. The surroundings were filled with powerful mental strength. Of course, this mental strength was not concentrated but scattered. It was like a powerful army, but they were scattered here and were not under command. Therefore, when you approached the fire, only the nearby soldiers would attack. If this powerful mind power was concentrated, Even a Yuan King elite would find it difficult to resist. Li Zhongjiu exclaimed in his heart. At the same time, he felt an unbearable itch in his heart. It was obvious that the things in this chaotic stone valley were extremely nutritious. It would definitely be a very good tonic for mind power. Don't go beyond 5 feet from me. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect you. Li Zhongjiu looked at Suemo, who was chasing after him, and said indifferently. Suemo didn't care. It wasn't certain who would be protecting who. Combat power was one thing, experience was another. After all, this was the territory of the Vermilion Bird Army. If she was led by the nose by Li Zhongjiu, it would be too embarrassing. This is the territory of the Vermilion Bird Army. We have already done a lot of investigation here. I guarantee that you won't be at a disadvantage if you follow me, Suemo said and then took a step forward. She directly led the way. Chapter 351. Within the chaotic stone valley, Li Zhongjiu walked towards the place where the mental energy was concentrated. When he got closer, he could feel that Suemo, who was beside him, couldn't hold on any longer. We've already gone too deep into the chaotic stone valley. Even people of the same age as us couldn't get within 500 meters. We've already walked close to 1,000 meters. Suemo said worriedly. Sure, it's coming. Li Zhongjiu quickly waved his hand. The instant Suemo spoke, Li Zhongjiu also felt a wave of energy quickly approaching. Rumble, suddenly, a terrifying force burst out from the ground in front of them. It seemed like some kind of giant beast was traveling under the ground. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion, and it appeared in front of the two of them. Careful, Suemo immediately shouted as he held the dagger in his hand. The origin of the other party was unknown, so he had to be prepared to go all out. Bloodvine. The wave of energy rushed in front of Suemo, and was about to reach his feet. However, Li Zhongjiu took a step forward, and threw out a ball of obsidian fire. Instantly the thing underground rushed out. Boom! From Sumo's point of view, the thing that was forced out was the assassin of the night that the Vermilion Bird Army had to face. It was obvious that this wasn't the first time they had faced the terrifying Bloodvine. However, compared to the Bloodvines they encountered in the outside world, the Bloodvine in front of them was like an enlarged version of the Bloodvine. Just this one alone was equivalent to the polar rock snake that they had faced before. So thick, Li Zhongjiu was shocked when he saw the Bloodvine that he had forced out. Previously, when he was cultivating the ancient golden tyrant body technique, the Bloodvine had appeared. If it wasn't for the Bloodvine's sneak attack, Li Zhongjiu might not have had the chance to break through his body's limit. However, the Bloodvine that bound Li Zhongjiu was only as thick as a thumb. Why was the Bloodvine in front of him so terrifying? Even Li Zhongjiu was shocked when he saw it. This Bloodvine is an assassin of the White Blaze Mountain. It appears and disappears unpredictably, and is incomparably ferocious. Moreover, there seems to be no end to it, Suemo said in a deep voice. In fact, what Suemo didn't mention was that the vines they had seen in the army were at most half as thick as this Bloodvine. They weren't as thick as this one before them. This kind of power was even more terrifying. However, Li Zhongjiu did not take Sumo's words to heart. Li Zhongjiu already knew what these blood-red vines were, and where they came from. The blood vine that had bound him must have been a branch of the blazing blood-white lotus. Based on the current situation, the roots of this blazing blood-white lotus were so wide that it occupied the entire chaotic stone valley. This chaotic stone valley had obviously become the territory of the blazing blood-white lotus. The blazing blood-white lotus was also described in the herbal booklet. The blazing blood-white lotus was a kind of herb that could release mental fluctuations. Therefore, it was extremely dangerous. Li Zhongjiu and Suemo had now intruded into the territory of the blazing blood-white lotus. However, the main body of the blazing blood-white lotus had yet to awaken. On the other hand, the blood-red vines in front of them had an extremely strong desire for living things. After sensing the two of them, they quickly rushed towards them. Li Zhongjiu directly rushed out and attacked the thick blood-red vine. A small black iron hammer appeared in his hand. Mysterious lightning hammer. Boom! This hammer also carried the power of Li Zhongjiu's obsidian fire. In an instant, The thick blood-red vine was shattered by Li Zongjiu. His entire body burned and spread towards the depths of the ground. What? Suemo couldn't believe his eyes when he saw Li Zongjiu destroy the blood-red vine in front of him with a single move. It should be known that the blood-red vines were extremely difficult to deal with. In order to kill a single blood-red vine, it usually required the strength of an entire team. This was because the blood-red vine could continuously grow and was extremely flexible. I'd like to see how many tentacles you have. Li Zongjiu's eyes flickered with a cold light. Immediately, the mysterious lightning hammer in his hand made a loud boom. It smashed onto the ground. Boom! The ground of the chaotic stone valley suddenly shook violently, as if there was an earthquake. In an instant, it shook violently and the ground cracked. Crack, crack. Bang! Countless pieces of flaming vines flew up from the ground and landed on the ground with a bang. The surrounding mountain walls also spat out these terrifying blood-red vines. Without exception, they were all destroyed by Li Zongjiu. The originally scorching hot valley seemed to have become even hotter at this moment. Suemo just stood there and watched Li Zongjiu's actions in shock. It should be out soon, Li Zongjiu said indifferently. What's out soon? Suemo couldn't help but be stunned. What is Li Zongjiu talking about? Could it be that there are some meta beasts here? Suemo also saw that Li Zongjiu seemed to be holding something in his hand. It was as thin as a cicada's wing. When he saw it, it was actually a little dazzling, and he couldn't see it clearly. Li Zongjiu stood calmly in the middle of the road. In front of him, there were already potholes, and it seemed to have become a ruin. At this moment, Suemo even felt that the surrounding air seemed to have grown eyes. In an instant, a chill struck his heart. It was as if someone was secretly spying on him. How could this be? Then Suemo saw an extremely shocking scene. The mountain walls on both sides of the messy skeletons were falling off like tree bark, little by little. What was hidden in the mountain walls were terrifying blood-colored vines. There were so many vines that were continuously twisting around like a group of giant snakes that had stood up. As they swayed, it was extremely dazzling. If an ordinary person saw this scene, they would definitely not faint immediately. This was because this scene was indeed too frightening. Such a scene was simply like a nightmare in one's life. If one was entangled by these vines, who knew what would happen to them? Should we retreat first? Even Suemo lost his confidence. It turned out that there was such a terrifying thing in the chaotic stone valley. No wonder the commander had ordered that this place be turned into a forbidden area. No one was allowed to enter. As for the prisoners who were exiled here, of course, there was no way for them to leave this place alive. They had already died here and became a pile of white bones. It was obvious how miserable their fates were. Li Zongjiu didn't answer. Instead, he was still focused in front of him, as if something would appear in front of him. Suemo was anxious, but he could only stay by Li Zongjiu's side to protect him. If he directly ran away, it would be too disloyal. Rumble. Suddenly, the blood-colored vines seemed to carry the force of a thunderbolt, crushing towards the two of them. In front of them, four vines twisted and turned into a huge vine circle, rolling towards the two of them. If they didn't dodge quickly, they would definitely be crushed by these vines. In front of these terrifying vines, any kind of power would seem so insignificant. Suemo looked at Li Zongjiu with an indifferent face. What is this guy trying to do? Why is he still unwilling to leave? Over there. Li Zongjiu's eyes instantly locked onto a place. The vast flying knife in his hand was also thrown out. Swish! The flying knife left his hand as if it was effortless. But when Suemo saw this scene, he quickly moved in front of Li Zongjiu. He didn't know what Li Zongjiu's flying knife was for. The other party's attack would definitely crush him. The trajectory of Li Zongjiu's flying knife was unclear. But Li Zongjiu could clearly feel that this flying knife had cut through the vines that were blocking it. It easily pierced through the middle of a lotus's root. Phew! Suemo was already prepared to attack, but he saw that the blood-colored vines that were about to crush his head had suddenly disappeared. What? When Suemo saw this scene, he was shocked. Could it be that he was hallucinating? Did I see wrongly? Suemo didn't dare believe it. He was an origin ancestor. Could his eyes be blind? Even if his eyes were blind, the aura was exactly the same. This is... Suemo looked at Li Zongjiu, wanting to ask what was going on. However, he saw Li Zongjie lift his finger and flick her forehead. "Wake up. Pa." Suemo only felt that his body seemed to be moving backwards rapidly. When he opened his eyes, he couldn't help but take a few steps back before he stabilized himself. When he looked again, he realized that there was no change in his surroundings. There was no broken valley or terrifying blood-colored vines. How is this possible? He looked in the direction that Li Zongjie was heading. Suemo saw a pure white lotus growing under a rock about 200 meters away. There was also a flying knife on the lotus. Everything that had just happened had been an illusion. Chapter 352. Suemo was drenched in cold sweat, even though she had come to her senses later on. If the bloodvine ring had attacked them, the two of them would have been pulverized. Even if it was just an illusion, they would have already felt that they had been pulverized. Even if their bodies had not been attacked, they would not have been able to get up. You won't be able to rise again, and you'll really die like this. Suemo could not believe it. As a member of the Vermilion Bird military, she believed that her willpower was extremely strong. It would not have been easy to hypnotize her. However, she did not even know when she had been hypnotized. For people with weaker mind power, this was just a small trick. However, it was very easy to succeed in such a small trick. Li Zongjie cultivated the white god Fu. When he took his first step into the chaotic stone valley, he already knew that the blazing white lotus in the chaotic stone valley was a type of spirit medicine that could release a spiritual influence. Although the other party's mental influence was very strong, Li Zongjie had seen through it at a glance. He had spent a lot of time searching for the real body. After he had found it, he had acted decisively and destroyed the other party's illusion. Li Zongjie stepped forward and plucked the blazing blood-white lotus. At the same time, he retrieved his vast flying dagger. Since it was ranked first, it was obvious that the power of this spiritual herb was not simple. I did not expect that such a small thing would cause our Vermilion Bird military to lose so many soldiers. Even Suemo was in disbelief when she saw it. The mental influence of this flower is very strong. Anyone below the Yuan monarch level will be affected by it. Even if you retreat immediately, there will still be repercussions later on. This thing is not to be trifled with. Li Zongjie said. The repercussions were like continuing to have nightmares after returning. It would make one nervous, and might even destroy one's cultivation base, and make one's mind unstable. It would also have a great impact on one's future cultivation. I see. Suemo nodded. After the flower was plucked, the pressure that had originally appeared in the surroundings seemed to have disappeared at this moment. It seemed that this chaotic stone valley was no longer a strange place. Looks like you will have to report this to the higher-ups when you return this time around. Otherwise, if you continue to banish that criminal here, it would be equivalent to letting him go. Are there any other strange places on the Blazing Blood Mountain? Li Zongjie asked. Strange places? This place is strange everywhere. But if it's as strange as you said, then only the Core Valley can satisfy your needs. Core Valley? Li Zongjie frowned. That's right. Legend has it that the Blazing Blood Mountain was formed by a meteorite that fell from the sky. The temperature produced in the Core Valley is so high that even Yuan monarchs would find it difficult to mature. Therefore, very few people can enter it. Furthermore, in the core of the valley, there is an exotic beast that is covered in flames. It seems to be guarding something. The dynasty had once organized an attack, but they returned in defeat and did not discover anything. If you want to go, I advise you not to go. Suemo said. Lead the way. Li Zongjie said directly. Suemo looked at Li Zongjie in astonishment. What was wrong with this guy's brain? Didn't he already say that this place was not a place where ordinary people could enter? Even Yuan monarchs might be in danger, yet Li Zongjie still wanted to go? Wasn't he courting death? You have thought it through. Let's go. Li Zongjie walked out of the stone valley. Suemo did not know if he was harming Li Zongjie or helping Li Zongjie. The reason he told Li Zongjie about this was because Sumo's personality was like that. He would speak his mind. When the two of them appeared in front of Iron Pestle was still in disbelief. You came out so quickly. Is there nothing inside? Or is it too dangerous? Should we just leave? Tai Pestle asked curiously. In comparison, he was more interested in knowing what was inside the stone valley. Everyone was curious about it. Let's go to the core valley. Suemo did not answer Iron Pestle. After all, this fellow's brain was as stiff as a block of iron. Even if he were to tell him, he would only laugh and treat it as a joke. Where are we going? Iron Pestle could not react to Sumo's words. Where was he talking about? Could it be that he had heard wrongly? The core valley. He wants to take a look. After saying that, Suemo looked at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio gestured for Iron Pestle to lead the way with his eyes. Iron Pestle was more familiar with the core valley. When they were planning the attack on the core valley, Iron Pestle was one of the soldiers in charge of guarding the core valley. After all, Iron Pestle had been a soldier longer than Suemo. People will die in that place. Ordinary people can't withstand the temperature. Iron Pestle said hurriedly. Just lead the way. You talk too much. Suemo said. Hearing Sumo's words, Iron Pestle led the way. However, as they walked, he could not help bragging. After all, Iron Pestle had seen the battle in the core valley with his own eyes. Speaking of the core valley, I have to tell you guys about the situation back then. At that time, the meteorite landed outside the Imperial City. How can you not be nervous? How can you not be nervous? How can you not be nervous? You directly mobilized 2 of the 4 great armies to provide support. Moreover, there were also countless experts who wanted to squeeze in from within the city. In that battle, I actually only saw a little bit. Within the flames, there are very ferocious monsters. Brotherly, if you want to go, you must be careful. Iron Pestle said. Let me tell you, my brain was damaged at that time. When Iron Pestle said that, even Li Zongjio could not help but glance at him. So you know that your brain was damaged. On the incandescent mountain, Ling Yan's figure was floating in the air. There was a water curtain around his body to protect him. With this water curtain, he could resist the terrifying power of the surrounding flames. Therefore, Ling Yan could walk freely on the incandescent mountain. He believed that many people had similar yuan tools. Even if they did not have one, it would not be a problem to buy one in advance. That's strange. That kid is gone. Ling Yan found that he could not sense Li Zongjio's aura. As a teacher in charge, he also needed to ensure the safety of the students in such an outdoor activity. This was also the responsibility of a teacher in charge. If his students died or had an accident, it would be a waste of talent. Sometimes, if he could help, of course he would help. Therefore, Ling Yan also left a mark on the 2 of them. Less than a day had passed. Of course, he had to check if the 2 of them were still alive. Originally, he wanted to find Li Zongjio first, but when he took out the mark. However, he discovered that the mark on Li Zongjio's body had already disappeared. There was no trace of it at all. This caused Ling Yan to be instantly enraged. However, Li Zongjio also had a higher opinion of him. This kid is quite sinister. I'm afraid that my students are too upright. What if they get bullied? Ling Yan naturally knew that Li Zongjio had discovered the imprint that he had left on Li Zongjio's body. Furthermore, Li Zongjio had already removed the imprint at an unknown time. Let's go check on that Kuan Erasure guy first. Immediately, Ling Yan chased after Kuan Erasure. However, when Ling Yan followed his mark to find Kuan Erasure, he found that Kuan Erasure was not there. Instead, he was left on a lizard's body. Damn it! You 2 really think that you are very smart. Ling Yan grabbed the lizard and then fiercely threw it on the ground. His face bloomed with a fierce light. He could not wait to grab the 2 of them and eat them. Originally, as a form teacher, he was confident that he could discipline the 2 of them until they were obedient. But now, the 2 of them actually dared to play tricks in front of him. They used such a method to avoid his surveillance. Good. I want to see how capable the 2 of you are. Ling Yan, who was furious, returned to the campsite. He did not care about the 2 of them. On the incandescent mountain, as the 3 of them approached, even with their cultivation, they could already feel the unbearable heat. Even Tai Hua had to take a heat avoidance pill to be able to bring the 2 of them forward. Another 500 meters, and you will see a cave entrance. That cave is deep underground. That cave is very big. But once you enter that cave, You may be attacked by the strange beasts inside. Taihua pointed forward and said in a deep voice, "You two go back." Li Zongjiu already knew the route. The surroundings were indeed very hot. Even Li Zongjiu had to release his yuan power to protect his body. Fortunately, the obsidian flame was able to subdue the surrounding flames. Therefore, Li Zongjiu was still able to move freely. However, the two of them seemed to be crippled as they kept drinking water. Chapter 353. If we leave, will you be able to do it alone? Tai Qiu scratched his head. Looking at Li Zongjiu, he couldn't help but feel worried. Li Zongjiu was his savior, so he couldn't just watch Li Zongjiu die. Li Zongjiu didn't answer such a stupid question. On the other hand, Su Emo was well aware that even if he followed Li Zongjiu in, he would only be a burden. Not only would he not be of any help to Li Zongjiu, but he would also restrict Li Zongjiu's movements. We'll wait for you outside the cave. If anything happens, release this signal flare. With that, Su Emo gave his signal flare to Li Zongjiu. This was a signal flare that only the Vermilion Bird Army had. If it was released, the Vermilion Bird Army within 100 miles would quickly come to help, and their numbers would increase. Every single member of the Vermilion Bird Army was a very important member, so no matter who was in danger, they would try to save them in the shortest amount of time possible to ensure the safety of their comrades. It was because of this spirit that the Vermilion Bird Army became an army that caused people to tremble in fear. Li Zongjiu originally wanted to refuse. He wouldn't use this thing. But when he saw Su Mo's expression, he reached out and took it. His body flashed as he charged inside. It's better if you guys back off a bit. Otherwise, you won't be able to last long. With the surrounding temperature, the yuan energy in their bodies would be drained very quickly. If a powerful yuan beast appeared, they wouldn't even be able to escape. Take this yuan crystal back first, then gather the team members to cultivate. Don't waste time. Su Emo stuffed the polar rock snake's crystal into Tai Hua's hand. How can this be? It's such a precious thing. Tai Qiu shook his head. It was as if the yuan crystal was a hot stone. Take it. Don't hesitate. Hurry up and go. This is an order. Su Mo's expression became serious. When he gave the order, Tai Qiu immediately stood up straight. Yes, Captain. Despite his reluctance, he had no other choice. He didn't dare to disobey a military order. As a soldier, his duty was to obey orders. If he couldn't, then what kind of soldier would he be? Seeing Tai Qiu leave, Su Emo was relieved. If Li Zongjiu didn't come out in 2 days, then Su Emo would risk his life to charge in. That way, he would be able to repay Li Zongjiu for saving his life. After retreating a few hundred meters, Su Emo sat down and started meditating. He began to enter into a state of cultivation. Previously in the Stone Valley, he had exhausted almost all of his mental energy and had gone through a life and death battle. Now that he was here, he finally had a chance to rest. Naturally, he had to adjust his mental state. At the same time, if Li Zongjiu encountered any trouble inside, Su Emo would be able to rush over in time. It's up to you now. Although this core area was full of dangers, and even Yuan monarchs wouldn't dare to step into it, Su Emo could tell from Li Zongjiu's eyes that he was a very powerful person. Perhaps Li Zongjiu would be able to explore it smoothly and come out. Su Emo had confidence in Li Zongjiu. He didn't know where this confidence came from. When Li Zongjiu walked in alone, he immediately had a feeling that the energy here was familiar. It was as if he had seen and felt this energy somewhere before. This made Li Zongjiu extremely curious. This blazing energy, could this be the birthplace of the fire-glazed flame emperor in my previous life? Before Li Zongjiu had become a supreme-grade powerhouse, there had been several generations of powerhouses on the continent. If the current powerhouses of the continent, such as the Alchemy Emperor and the Alchemy Emperor, were considered the first generation of powerhouses, then the fire-glazed flame emperor would be the second generation of powerhouses. Therefore, Li Zongjiu had also come to this place. In the next few hundred years, this place would produce an Yuan monarch powerhouse. However, it was a pity. Now that Li Zongjiu was here, there was no need to hand over such a great opportunity. Although Li Zongjio had greater opportunities and greater powers, this power was still very suitable for Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's current power was still very suitable for Li Zongjio. The strength of the fire-glazed flame emperor relied on the terrifying inextinguishable flames. Inextinguishable flame, that's right. Then it seems that the inextinguishable flame's kindling came from here. Li Zongjio finally felt the origin of this energy. Moreover, he could clearly feel the power of the pulsating energy around him. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had also seen the strength of the fire-glazed flame emperor. At that time, it was a true world conference. Powerhouses from all over the world had gathered, and each of them wanted to reach the peak. At that time, Li Zongjio was just a small fry. He was not famous, but he had seen the strength of the fire-glazed flame emperor. He had killed his way to the 10th place of the heavenly tripod list alone. At that time, the fire-glazed flame emperor had yet to reach the peak of his strength. Later on, his strength continued to increase. However, the fire-glazed flame emperor's self-confidence was inflated with the growth of his strength. He actually dared to take liberties with a girl from an ancient family, which resulted in his hands being crippled. After that, there was no news of him anymore. A powerhouse of his generation had fallen. At that time, it was about 1,000 years. It was the peak period of the ancient families of inheritance. Some ancient families had appeared one after another, fighting for the world's resources. To expand their influence, it was as if all of them had discussed it. At the same time, like bamboo shoots after the rain, they had sprung up. At that time, all the major forces could be said to be in a state where 100 flowers bloomed. The appearance of the fire-glazed flame emperor was just a flash in the pan. However, the energy attribute of this place was the same as the fire-glazed flame emperor's. Li Zongjio liked it very much. If the immortal flame fuses with my obsidian flame, I wonder what it will be like. Li Zongjio walked into the cave. Before he entered, he had already found some spiritual herbs growing at the side of the cave. As he walked closer, he found that these herbs were all the things that were marked on the herbal medicine booklet. These things are called iron rock mushrooms. Li Zongjio saw a large number of mushrooms curled up here. It seemed that this place was very suitable for them to grow. Therefore, all of them were here. This gave Li Zongjio a chance to harvest them. All of them were harvested. After harvesting the iron rock mushrooms, he continued to walk forward and found some new spiritual herbs on the ground. Magma grass, bull's tongue flower. Li Zongjio's hands moved up and down, and the knife moved up and down, and the precious herbs were all stored away. Li Zongjio did not let go of anything that had some spiritual energy. Suddenly, Li Zongjio stepped on a stone. The stone was slightly hot. Li Zongjio had activated his elemental energy to protect himself, but it was still able to burn Li Zongjio. This made Li Zongjio curious. He picked up the stone at his feet and carefully observed it. It's a fire elemental primordial stone. Li Zongjio's eyes lit up. Ordinary primordial stones had no elemental attributes. They were merely formed from yuan qi and could be used by anyone. However, primordial stones with elemental attributes were even more valuable. Usually, it would take 100 ordinary primordial stones to exchange for one primordial stone with fire elemental attributes. This was because for those who possess fire elemental energy, this kind of primordial stone was definitely very precious and highly sought after. Keep it. These people's love for primordial stones was no less than a powerful primordial weapon. This was because if one absorbed primordial stones with elemental energy for a long time, it would definitely improve one's own elemental energy. It might even become stronger. Absorbing primordial stones with elemental attributes would definitely bring about more benefits. Roar. Just as Li Zongjio was about to pick up the primordial stone, suddenly, he felt as if someone was breathing behind him. At this moment he stopped and turned around to look. Immediately, he saw a pair of bright eyes looking at him from within the pitch-black cave. The moment that person looked at him, an ominous glint burned in his eyes. Boom! A figure pounced towards Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio was unable to dodge in time, and was directly thrown into the cave by the figure, rolling deep into the cave. Chapter 354. Although Li Zongjio couldn't see the other party's face clearly, he could feel what the other party was doing. Suddenly, it opened its bloody mouth and bit down on Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio dodged in an instant. He extended his hand and grabbed the other party's throat. Crack! The moment he grabbed it, Li Zongjio crushed the other party's throat without any hesitation. After a crisp sound, the pair of claws that grabbed Li Zongjio lost their strength. It's just a fire wolf. Li Zongjio's fingertip burned with a ray of light. Under the illumination of the light, a wolf corpse fell to the ground. Although its throat was crushed, its heart was still beating nonstop. This fire wolf brought Li Zongjio to a place. Li Zongjio stood up and looked around. This place seemed to be a huge pit. It was surrounded by tall walls. However, he could see that there were some gaps in the walls. I'd like to see if there's anything that can stop me. Li Zongjio flicked his finger. An array of flame floated in the air. It directly illuminated the surrounding light. Boom! When Li Zongjio saw the things around him, his mouth opened wide. He almost blurted out a curse. This was too much. The place where Li Zongjio was at was like the center of a meta-beast's lair. What he was stepping on was the excrement of the meta-beasts. The meta-beasts that were entrenched on the walls heard the commotion. Or rather, they had already sensed the commotion. They crawled out one after another. There were all kinds of meta-beasts. There were some giant lizards, some giant frogs, and the like. However, without exception, when they were angry, they would emit flames all over their bodies. Boom! Dozens of flames immediately lit up. Within the cave, even without the illumination of Li Zongjio's flames, everyone could see everything clearly. The balls of flames continued to light up. The power that kept appearing attracted Li Zongjio's attention. He looked around and saw that there were hundreds of balls of light that lit up. Come on, it's going to be a fierce battle. Li Zongjio took out his lightning hammer without hesitation. If one wanted to obtain a treasure, one had to go through a trial. This was a principle since ancient times. Li Zongjio was very clear about this concept. As he experienced more, Li Zongjio was more convinced of this theory. In this world there was no free lunch. One had to go through hardships in order to improve. Roar! Roar! The surrounding meta-beasts with flames charged towards Li Zongjio. The aura that came tearing through the wind, in addition to his own terrifying strength, also caused Li Zongjio to roar along with it. As a dignified evil lord, could it be that he would be beaten down by these flaming meta-beasts? He swung the lightning hammer in his hand crazily and soared into the sky. Swoosh! Although the other party had the advantage in numbers, due to their large size, they were able to restrict each other. When Li Zongjio's body moved, it was possible for him to fight one against one, or even one against two. Boom! Boom! The lightning hammer smashed down. When it landed on the ground, it exploded with terrifying power. Although these meta-beasts were ferocious, their ferocious aura was like that of a child's when compared to Li Zongjio. They couldn't scare Li Zongjio at all. However, when Li Zongjio heard these fellows roaring even though they were clearly no match for him, Li Zongjio felt extremely irritated. Shut up all of you! The blood dragon original spirit burst out from his body instantly. Boom! Li Zongjio's eyes were red. In addition to the aura that lingered around his body, the terrifying blood dragon was just like a king of the blood clan, overlooking the world. When this aura was unleashed, it immediately caused the surrounding Yuan beasts to become unusually quiet. All of them widened their eyes and looked at the blood dragon that was floating above Li Zongjio's head. At this moment, even though they were meta-beasts that only knew how to kill, they could clearly feel the pressure from the blood dragon. Die! Li Zongjio didn't hold back. Obviously, these meta-beasts were frightened, and their fighting power decreased. Therefore Li Zongjio swung his hammer down. Boom! Boom! The mysterious lightning hammer continued to descend, smashing the brains of some of the meta-beasts. Li Zongjio was fast, accurate, and ruthless. Phew! In an instant, blood splattered on the battlefield and flames flew everywhere. This battle lasted for almost 20 minutes. Li Zongjio, who had the support of the blood dragon, was like a herd of sheep waiting to be slaughtered when facing these meta-beasts. He took them down easily. That's all there is to it. Li Zongjio looked at the corpses that were all over the ground. Some of the meta-beasts' bodies were still twitching. Li Zongjie went forward again and swung his hammer down, directly blasting their brains apart. His mental strength turned into a sharp knife, and instantly took out the meta-crystals of these hundreds of meta-beasts. These meta-beasts were just ordinary wild beasts before. However, under the catalysis of this energy, they actually formed such power. They even gave birth to the power of meta-crystals in their bodies. Li Zongjie looked at the power of the meta-crystals floating in front of him, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. It seemed like the energy here was very suitable for Li Zongjie. However, the surroundings were pitch black, and he couldn't find the existence of any energy. However, Li Zongjie was very experienced in finding treasures. Thus, he was able to determine with a single glance that if there was something here, it would be extremely difficult to detect. The first thing he had to do was to destroy everything in front of him. Swoosh! Li Zongjie jumped onto the flat ground. Chapter 355. It appeared in front of Li Zongjie. It was a huge flame flower surrounded by flames. The flames dancing on the petals were terrifying. It was as if there was a fire dragon roaring and burning under each flame. Such a situation caused Li Zongjie to be extremely shocked in his heart. How did the Fire Glaze Flame Emperor do it? This is the Eternal Fire Glaze Flower. Li Zongjie was shocked. The Eternal Fire Glaze Flower. Wasn't that the original spirit of the Fire Glaze Flame Emperor? Although most people's primordial spirits were refined from primordial beasts, if some plants had cultivated for many years and possessed terrifying strength and primordial chi, they could naturally become primordial spirits and be absorbed. It was like a 1,000-year-old water lily. It was a plant, not a primordial beast. So the Fire Glaze Flame Emperor refined the Eternal Fire Glaze Flower. Just by looking at the aura of this thing, one could tell that it was equivalent to a true Yuan King. Even the indestructible Fire Glass Flower had given birth to an indestructible flame seed. A fire seed and a spiritual herb. If the two were superimposed, it would be very terrifying, and the effect would be obvious. If there was something hidden in the meteorite, then pudding was the fire seed of the eternal fire. It had fused with the Eternal Fire Glaze Flower, causing the Eternal Fire Glaze Flower to possess great power. In that case, the Eternal Fire Glaze Flower unexpectedly obtained the Eternal Fire Seed, and became something like an original spirit. With Li Zongjie's cultivation level, he quickly figured out the reason for this. Everything in this world was so ingenious. One had to admit that coincidences were very important. Then let me see what you're capable of. Li Zongjie held the vast flying dagger and strode forward. Above the Eternal Fire Glass Flower, a fiery light suddenly bloomed and rushed towards Li Zongjie. With a gentle wave of the petals, a flame swept over. Boom! The flame rapidly flew over and landed beside Li Zongjie, but Li Zongjie had already rushed out. However, the violent explosion still caused a gust of wind and pushed Li Zongjie away. Bang! Li Zongjie fell to the ground. The eternal fire turned into a flaming whip and whipped towards Li Zongjie. Crack! Li Zongjie hurriedly dodged. There was a mark nearly half a foot deep where he had originally been. This was the power left behind by the everlasting fire. If he had been whipped, Li Zongjie didn't know if his body would have been able to withstand it. Swoosh! Another long whip of the inextinguishable flame suddenly appeared. As the two fire whips intertwined, they directly sealed Li Zongjie's figure within. Crack! Crack! Even though Li Zongjie was able to dodge these attacks with his sharp senses, several of the flaming whips still landed on his body. Even in his current state, there was still a long black burn mark on his body. Hiss! Li Zongjie grimaced in pain. In such a hot environment, one's pain seemed to be magnified. Even Li Zongjie could not help but cry out. Are you the only one with fire? Your grandfather also has fire. A similar long whip appeared in Li Zongjie's hand. It was formed by the obsidian flame. The black dragon's soul was attached to the whip, and seemed to faintly emit the power of the black dragon's roar. That was why the other party was intimidated. Otherwise, who knew what these guys would do? Pa! Li Zongjie activated the obsidian flame whip, and entangled his opponent's eternal fire whip. At the same time, Li Zongjiu took the opportunity to throw the vast flying dagger in his hand. Just as Li Zongjiu was about to make his move, a burst of energy suddenly attacked him from behind. Swoosh! As the wind howled, Li Zongjiu could already feel his body being constricted. Oh no, it's the guardian metabeast. Li Zongjiu had actually forgotten about it. The guardian of the eternal fire glass flower was a flaming snake. Therefore, when the flaming snake attacked, it used its powerful body to wrap around Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu was instantly trapped in the endless pressure and could not escape. The vast flying dagger was also swept away by the dozens of flame whips. With a few cracking sounds, the flame whips entangled the vast flying dagger and prevented it from moving forward. However, the power of the vast flying dagger was not so easily neutralized. In this process, the two parties were in a deadlock. Li Zongjiu! A shout came from the cave. Suemo saw that Li Zongjiu was entangled by a pitch-black python. The strength of this python was obviously much stronger than Suemo, but Suemo did not show any fear. In an instant he unleashed his strongest attack. Vermilion Bird Slash. Suemo let out a low growl as he held his dagger in a reverse grip. With a swoosh, he charged forward and stabbed the sharp dagger into the python's body. Roar! Bang! The python let out a low roar, and its body, which was originally shrinking, instantly expanded. At the same time, it fiercely swung its tail, sending Suemo flying. Suemo crashed into the mountain wall and fell to the ground with a plop. Suemo directly fainted. You're courting death. Li Zongjiu naturally saw Suemo's situation. Although Li Zongjiu did not approve of people of the same age, Suemo was definitely an outstanding young man. He was simple and not pretentious. This kind of character was also appreciated by Li Zongjiu, which was why he cooperated with Suemo. Otherwise, he would have shaken off these people long ago. Could it be that Li Zongjiu alone could not find this place? After his rebirth, Li Zongjiu also needed some friends. He didn't want to live with the mentality of an old man. If that was the case, wouldn't it be very meaningless? The youth that he had once wasted, now he had the ability to pick it up again. The more he saw, the more he appreciated people like Suemo's character. Suemo could not have withstood the attack just now. He must have been seriously injured. Therefore, Li Zongjiu's eyes were burning with a fierce light. You are courting death. At this moment, the Blood Dragon original spirit did not need to be mobilized at all. It directly appeared under Li Zongjiu's feet and dragged Li Zongjiu's body into the air. It looked down at the pitch-black python in front of it. This python had been entrenched in this place for several years. Seeing that the eternal fire glass flower was about to mature, it was naturally excited. However, when it woke up today, it discovered that someone was coveting the treasure it had set its eyes on. Naturally, it could not let it go. Chi! The black python roared at Li Zongjiu, wanting to tell Li Zongjiu that it was not afraid. However, Li Zongjiu stretched out his hand, and the Thunder Xian hammer appeared in his hand. The obsidian fire curled up, and Li Zongjiu's body suddenly fell toward the black python. The Blood Dragon original spirit under his feet easily tore apart the other party's aura. Boom! The blood claw suddenly pierced the black python's body and restrained it. The black python seemed to know how powerful this blood dragon's soul was after it restrained the latter. At this moment, the only thing that could move was its tail. It suddenly rose up, brushed against the top of the mountain wall, and fell directly toward Li Zongjiu. Boom! Li Zongjiu raised one hand. This attack that was enough to destroy a mountain peak could not move an inch in the hands of Li Zongjiu. It had no power at all. In front of Li Zongjiu, this move seemed to be completely ineffective. A golden light was reflected in the python's pupils. With its intelligence, it naturally knew that it was going to be unlucky. The power that suddenly attacked was a golden light shadow. The golden dragon original spirit. Li Zongjiu blocked the tail attack with one hand and caught the tail attack. It was the power of the golden dragon original spirit that worked. At this moment, the golden dragon original spirit also opened its bloody mouth and bit the tail. You have a king bloodline, but unfortunately, you have provoked someone you should not have provoked. The two original spirits by Li Zongjiu's side directly pressed him, and the black python to the ground, making the latter unable to move. Upon seeing this, the black python immediately submitted to Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio ignored it. Obsidian flames lingered on the mysterious lightning hammer in his hand. Boom! A terrifying black flame fell and burned the body of the black python clean like a gust of wind sweeping away fallen leaves. The latter was already at the peak of the Fourth Order realm. It was equivalent to a peak Sky Origin Ancestor realm powerhouse. But in front of Li Zongjio, it still did not have the slightest ability to fight back. It was easily killed. Ding! A pitch-black yuan crystal fell on the ground, emitting light in the cave like a black diamond. Vast flying knife. At this moment, the flying knife was surrounded by the everlasting flame. The everlasting flame array seemed to be about to melt the vast flying knife, but unfortunately, Li Zongjio's flying knife was also forged from the meteorite. Break! A thought passed through Lin Dong's mind, and a frightening strength immediately spread out from the vast flying knife. Mental energy also shot out like a fan that was extinguishing flames. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the flame on the everlasting flame glass flower was extinguished. Whoosh! At the same time, the flying knife also easily cut off the root of the everlasting flame glass flower. Seeing that the spirituality of the everlasting flame glass flower was about to disappear, Li Zongjio did not let its vitality fade away. It's not that easy to die. Mental strength wrapped around this power, and then Li Zongjio helped Suemo up. Chapter 356. Just now, Li Zongjio's mental power had been paying attention to Sumo's condition. The black python's tail flick attack. It had directly caused the elemental bead in Sumo's body to collapse. Therefore, Li Zongjio was so furious that he had touched the elemental bead. For a cultivator, it was as good as ending her life. It had even threatened Sumo's life. Either Suemo woke up and found that she had lost all her cultivation, or she could only die with serious injuries. Regardless of the outcome, Li Zongjio was unwilling to see it. After all, Suemo had rushed out to save him. Even though she knew that she was no match for Li Zongjio, she still insisted on rushing forward and saving him. Just this kindness alone was something that Li Zongjio would have to repay for a long time. There was no such thing as a life-saving grace being cancelled out. After all, if it wasn't for her help, there wouldn't be this person anymore. Fortunately, this girl hasn't condensed her elemental soul. Li Zongjio withdrew his spiritual power and pushed a surge of elemental energy into Sumo's body, helping Suemo support this surge of energy. At the very least, she could maintain her last breath and not die. But in fact, Suemo was almost done. Under such serious injuries, her life force was rapidly draining away. Use the inextinguishable fire to reconstruct the elemental bead. Inextinguishable fiery glass flower, become her elemental soul. Li Zongjio's enormous willpower instantly poured into the elemental soul of the inextinguishable fiery glass flower. A ball of light condensed in his hand and turned into a small halo. Inextinguishable fire seed. Li Zongjio then extracted the inextinguishable fire seed from the fiery glass flower's body. Such a supreme treasure was something that ordinary people yearned for greatly. In fact, for the sake of this inextinguishable fire seed, they would even kill everyone who fought for it. Li Zongjio had seen plenty of such situations. However, Li Zongjio had seen a lot of treasures before. Although the eternal flame seed was a very strong source of energy, he was willing to sacrifice it for Sumo's loyalty. First, he fed the inextinguishable flame seed into Sumo's mouth. At the same time, he also injected the original soul of the fire glass flower into Sumo's body. Suemo, who was unconscious, could only feel a wave of scorching hot energy rushing into his body. The pain of the flame invading his body caused Suemo to furrow his eyebrows. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. White Dragon Origin Spirit. Li Zongjio summoned the White Dragon Origin Spirit. With the auxiliary attribute of the White Dragon Primordial Spirit, he strengthened his spiritual power, and then forcibly helped Suemo refine the inextinguishable fire seed in his body. The inextinguishable fire seed quietly merged into Sumo's origin bead. The cracks on the origin bead were also repaired by the terrifying inextinguishable fire seed. This terrifying power also caused the origin bead in Sumo's body to quickly revolve. Luckily, it's of the same attribute. If it's of different attributes, then even if I'm here, it would be useless. When Li Zongjiu thought of this, he felt some lingering fear. If Sumo's body couldn't hold on for so long, then wouldn't he be blind? In such a short period of time, there wasn't even enough time to refine pills. Even Li Zongjiu had times when he was helpless. Luckily, Suemo came from the Vermilion Bird Army. If he wanted to join the Vermilion Bird Army, he had to ensure that his origin energy was of the fire attribute. Otherwise, he wouldn't accept anyone. In order to ensure the integrity and unity of the Vermilion Bird Army, when this concentrated power reached a certain level, it could cause a qualitative change. With Li Zongjiu's strength, he only needed to get through this dangerous period before he could stabilize. Sumo's mental energy was also continuously merging with the inextinguishable fire glass flower. This merging process was progressing very smoothly. After all, he was once a sovereign-level expert. If he could make a move, then he must have a foolproof treasure. This time, I've given you a great opportunity. When Li Zongjiu completed the merging of the origin bead, he let out a sigh of relief. His head was covered in sweat. At this moment, 1.5 days had passed in the outside world. There was still half a day left until the deadline. It was almost dark now. When the sun rose tomorrow, this trial would be considered to have ended. For that opportunity, Li Zongjiu had to collect some of the herbs. He had to win. Suemo opened his eyes and woke up from his coma. Suemo didn't know what had happened to him, nor did he know what had happened to him. However, after waking up, he realized that his strength had increased by a lot. How could this be? Suemo circulated his energy slightly and was shocked by the vigorous yuan power in his body. He couldn't believe his eyes. How could this be my yuan power? My yuan power has broken through. This yuan power isn't my yuan power from before. It seems to be purer and more powerful. Feeling the changes in his body, Suemo was both surprised and worried. Li Zongjiu, you're awake. Suemo recalled that he had gone to save Li Zongjiu. However, he only had time to stab him once before he was knocked unconscious. He wasn't clear about what happened after that. Li Zongjiu was holding some herbs in his hand. After confirming that Suemo was fine, Li Zongjiu began to wander around. Not only that, he accidentally found some extremely rare and precious herbs. They were all herbs from the herbal booklet. In fact, the eternal fire glass flower that Li Zongjiu had obtained was even more valuable than these medicinal herbs. It was not even recorded in the medicinal herb booklet, so it should be considered a pleasant surprise. You're injured. You can feel your own strength now. Li Zongjiu said. My strength? Didn't you notice that there's something extra in your body? Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Inside my body. Just as Sumo's mind moved, his body seemed to release a dazzling energy that slowly diffused into the surroundings. The energy that was released was the terrifying fire elemental energy. Such powerful fire elemental energy. He opened his palm, and a ray of light was condensing. It was this thing that was hidden in Sumo's body. When it appeared, Suemo felt his strength increase greatly, and he possessed an extremely terrifying power. When he saw the thing in his palm, Suemo finally realized the changes in his body. Yuan spirit. Although Suemo had broken through to the origin ancestor realm, he had yet to refine his Yuan spirit. Because he couldn't find a suitable primordial spirit, Suemo couldn't beat some powerful primordial spirits, and primordial spirits that were too weak would be a great waste for Suemo. To be able to become a captain of the Vermilion Bird Army, at such a young age, was already proof of his talent. This is the eternal fire glass flower. There's an eternal fire seed in your body. This eternal fire seed and this fire glass flower are enough for you to cultivate to the origin emperor realm. It's at least equivalent to a grade 6 yuan beast. It's just right for you. Li Zongjiu said. Although Li Zongjiu's words were calm and ordinary, as if there was nothing to be surprised about, to Suemo, it was like a thunderclap exploding in his ears. Suemo was dumbfounded. How is this possible? This is This is a grade 6 yuan spirit. Damn. Although the last word was said very softly, Li Zhongjiu could still hear it clearly. It's just a grade 6 yuan spirit. It's still up to your potential to what extent it can be used. Li Zhongjiu said. Although the yuan spirit was powerful, it had to have a tacit understanding with one's body. Only then could the two combine and become an expert. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste to have a treasure mountain, but not know how to use it? How could this be? My God, this is all because of you. It's not me. It's your luck that's good. Otherwise you would be dead by now. Li Zhongjiu interrupted Sumo's words and paused for a moment before looking at the latter seriously. Next time, if you know you can't win, don't rush up. It's useless. Looking at how serious Li Zhongjiu was, she didn't know if he was concerned about her or making fun of her. But he shouldn't be making fun of her. Otherwise he wouldn't have saved her. I didn't expect you to save my life again. Sumo will never forget. If you have any problems in the future, Sumo will never decline. Sumo looked at Li Zhongjiu's eyes and said. For eyes met, and the atmosphere in the air became a little unusual. Everyone, I said that this place isn't dangerous. It's just that the Vermilion Bird Army is controlling it and doesn't want others to find it. I can guarantee that there are many precious herbs inside. Chapter 357. Footsteps could be heard coming from outside the cave. When Li Zhongjiu first heard the voice, he found it familiar. However, he quickly recalled who it was. You just broke through. Go and practice. Li Zhongjiu said to Sumo. What? Sumo was stunned. What practice? However, Sumo also heard the sound coming from the cave. The two of them sat on the same spot, turned around, and looked in the direction of the cave. Someone's here. The few people who came in were shocked when they saw Li Zhongjiu and Sumo. It was as if they were caught doing something wrong. Who's there? Due to the dim lighting and the fact that they were more vigilant, they quickly hid behind when there was a problem. They didn't want to reveal their heads. What if it was some extremely ferocious meta beast that suddenly jumped out to eat them? Therefore, these people were also very worried. Wait a minute. That person just now seemed a little familiar. One of them tried to recall. That figure, that appearance, he felt like he had seen it somewhere before. This kind of familiarity at a glance was definitely not wrong. If he had never seen it before, he would definitely not have such a sense of familiarity. Fuck, it's that brat. The few of them suddenly realized. Wasn't the person in the cave the arrogant freshman? The three of them looked at each other and nodded fiercely. There was an extremely sinister smile on their faces. The three of them walked in side by side. How could they let Li Zhongjiu escape with such a good opportunity? So it's you, brat. Weren't you very arrogant? Let's see where you can run to this time. Yo, I didn't expect you to come here with a little girl instead of looking for herbs. Ching, I'm coming. Such a hot body. Junior sister, why don't you follow us? When they saw Sumo's perfect body that was filled with a trace of wildness, these people's eyes were wide open. Especially after the breakthrough, Sumo's body seemed to have become more prominent. This casual twist was a fatal attraction to ordinary people. Brat, you sure have good luck with women. The leader looked at Li Zhongjiu, and then looked at Sumo. Unlike his companions, he didn't reveal a perverted look. Idiot. Even though there's no one else here, you're still damaging your image in front of the girls. As the boss, it's only natural for you to remain calm. The three people in front of him were the ones who had a conflict with Li Zhongjiu and Lan Shan on the sky-shaking ship. He was also in the A class of the Heavenly STEM faculty, but he was 1 year older than Li Zhongjiu and was in the 2nd grade. Haha, I don't know if I'm lucky or not, but I know that you won't be able to enjoy it today. Li Zhongjiu waved his hand casually, as if he had nothing to lose. No matter what you say, I'm here anyway. And I want to see how you're going to get beaten up, and how you're going to die miserably. Seeing Li Zhongjiu's face that deserved a beating. The three of them did not wait any longer. Junior sister, you should hide at the side first. This matter has nothing to do with you, so I won't make things difficult for you. The leader of the group said very politely. He gave Suemo a smile that he thought was very kind. It was as if he wanted to use this smile to conquer Suemo. Suemo also grinned at the three people in front of him. That brilliant smile instantly made everything around them lose its color. The three of them were almost captivated by this smile. However, in the next moment, the person at the back got a taste of what it meant to have his balls smashed to the ground. Sumo's figure flashed and appeared beside the last person. Then, he directly grabbed his shoulder and threw him over his shoulder. Bang! When he fell to the ground, there just so happened to be a piece of rock stuck between his legs. Thus, the instant he fell to the ground, the pain he felt was simply indescribable. Ah! A squeal like a pig being slaughtered rang out. Li Zongjiu calmly sat at the side and arranged the flowers in his hand. They had mistaken Suemo for someone from the Heavenly Stellar Medicine Manor. How could there be such a fierce girl in the Heavenly Stellar Medicine Manor? Although one person was instantly defeated, the other two weren't simple either. When Suemo made his move, they had already reacted. Junior sister, you asked for it. Since you dared to take the initiative to attack, then don't blame us for being impolite. The Heavenly Stellar Medicine Manor didn't only nurture an alchemist who knew how to refine pills, but also an alchemist with tenacious vitality. In addition, these people were all people with talent and conditions. Therefore, when they compared themselves to each other, the requirements for themselves would be higher. Therefore, alchemy alone wasn't enough to satisfy them. It wasn't enough for them to stand out from their peers. More importantly, they had to have powerful fighting strength. Boom! Boom! The two of them simultaneously released their auras. They had actually reached the origin ancestor realm. Furthermore, the yuan energy that lingered around their bodies was extremely powerful. It turned into flames that spread in the cave, and even emitted crackling sounds. If you don't have any skills, do you think that the A class of the Heavenly STEM system is free? Li Zongjiu was a little surprised, as the strength of the two of them had already reached the level 5 Sky Origin Ancestor realm. It seemed like they were still hiding something. How could they have such achievements at such a young age? Furthermore, they usually like to cause trouble, so Li Zongjiu guessed that it was all an act. When they really fought, they would know each other's strength. Don't use too much strength, otherwise it wouldn't be good if you killed them, Li Zongjiu told Suemo. That person glanced at Li Zongjiu with a sinister look in his eyes. You can show off now. Wait until I deal with this sexy junior sister, then I'll deal with you. Then you'll know what a sour feeling is. Junior sister, it's not too late for you to surrender now. I, Zhao Qingfeng, don't want to be enemies with you, junior sister. The leader of the group was called Zhao Qingfeng. At this moment, he wanted to persuade Suemo to surrender. After all, they hadn't fought yet, so there was still room for negotiation. When the real fight started, it wouldn't be a game anymore. Idiot, Suemo said coldly. Suemo said coldly. His eyes were filled with mockery. However, the strength of these people still made Suemo afraid. Although Suemo knew that his yuan force had broken through, he didn't know exactly how much it had been. Before this, he had only been a third-grade origin ancestor. Thus, he couldn't help but be wary of two fifth-grade origin ancestor experts. However, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he had a very strong desire to fight these people before him, as if he wanted to challenge this level of difficulty. In an instant, Suemo attacked, not holding back the terrifying yuan power in his body. Although Li Zongjiu had said to hold back a little, it was fine as long as he didn't kill them. You overestimate yourself. Zhao Qingfeng's eyes flashed coldly. Since Suemo didn't know what was good for him, then he couldn't blame him for being ruthless. There were beautiful women everywhere. Since Suemo had chosen to attack, then he was an enemy. The three auras collided instantly. One could even faintly hear the roars of beasts. Clearly, the two people had also secretly used a trace of their yuan spirit power, wanting to suppress Suemo. However, Suemo wasn't intimidated by the other party's strength. Instead, she dealt with it with ease. Although the two people in front of him had strong yuan qi, their combat strength was too weak in comparison. It was almost weak to the point of no return. Trash. She didn't need to use 100% of her strength. It was only 70% of her strength. And she was already evenly matched with the two of them. 1 against 2. And she didn't even need to use her full strength. How is this possible? Zhao Qingfeng and Su Emo were shocked, but the movements of their hands didn't stop. How could this junior sister be so good at fighting? You dare to come out with just this bit of strength? Su Emo suddenly sped up, and her figure rushed in front of Zhao Qingfeng. Her entire body rose into the air, and her slender legs instantly clamped Zhao Qingfeng's waist. Not good. Zhao Qingfeng didn't have time to enjoy this luck. In the next second, he was ruthlessly thrown out by Su Emo. His head hit a rock with a bang. Chapter 358. Zhao Qingfeng was in pain this time. His head immediately swelled up, making him look like he was in extreme pain. The other person was in disbelief when he saw Zhao Qingfeng fall. However, in the next second, Su Emo also rushed towards him. The latter was so scared that he directly released the power of his Yuan spirit. A volcanic giant ape appeared behind him, releasing a violent and ferocious power at the same time. It spread out in all directions. Boom! Su Emo was also pushed back by this move. His figure quickly swept back, and after taking a few small steps back, he stabilized himself. Behind that person was a red-haired gorilla, who was panting heavily. Its eyes were filled with a terrifying murderous intent, as though it wanted to crush Su Emo into pieces. What's that? Summoning his origin spirit meant that he had already lost in this competition. Facing his own junior sister, he actually had to use his origin spirit power. However, if he didn't use his origin spirit power, then he might have been crippled just now. It was safer to summon his origin spirit. Look, out of the 3 people present, 2 directly fell down. Fortunately, he was smarter. However, when he summoned his Yuan spirit, he also saw that there seemed to be a power released from his opponent's body. Although he couldn't see it clearly, it seemed to be a flower. He actually used a flower as his Yuan spirit. What a joke! There are actually people who use flowers as their primordial spirit. If you can't find a strong primordial beast for you to hunt, you can just tell me directly. But today I, your senior brother, am going to destroy this flower. This Yuan beast of mine is a true volcanic giant ape at the peak of the 4th rank. Although it hasn't reached adulthood yet, its power is definitely not something you people can resist. Peak of the 4th rank. It sounded very powerful. If it was before today, Su Emo would be shocked. Su Emo would have been shocked. But just now, Li Zhongjiu had told him that her primordial spirit was a terrifying existence comparable to a 6th rank primordial beast. It was simply a world of difference from this peak of the 4th rank in front of him. However, the difference was that Su Emo was in the sky. Su Emo's body was covered by the leaves of the eternal fire glass. At this moment, seeing the giant ape in front of him, he did not panic. Condense fire whip. A flame whip suddenly appeared in Su Emo's hand. There was a faint flame burning on it. It looked like it would be extinguished at any moment. It didn't even have any power to speak of. The senior brother wanted to ruthlessly teach Su Emo a lesson, and let Su Emo know how powerful and domineering he was. For such a woman, the most important thing was to learn how to be conquered by men. First, he had to let her know how powerful he was. However, when he wanted to go up, his original soul, the giant volcanic ape, felt a burst of fear from the bottom of its heart. This kind of fear came from the bottom of its heart. It was actually terrified. You piece of trash, hurry up and attack. If you drop the ball at this time, do you believe that I won't let you out again? After being frightened by the senior brother, the giant volcanic ape roared furiously and charged forward. He swung his sandbag-sized fist, which was as thick as a tree trunk, towards Su Emo. At the same time, Su Emo also lashed out with his flaming whip. Whoosh! A whistling sound broke through the air. It didn't seem to have any power. Originally, the senior brother wanted to directly block it with his body. However, when it got close, a scalding and blazing feeling suddenly came. When the whip fell on his body, the giant volcanic ape reached out to grab the flaming whip. However, the moment he grabbed it, his entire palm, and even his entire body burned. Oh my God, it's so hot, help. His body suddenly burned with a raging fire. Such a sudden burst of power simply made it impossible for people to react. How could this be? How could the flame rush to his body by itself? It was so terrifying. The senior brother wanted to activate his yuan energy to extinguish the flame, but he found that it was impossible. Instead, as his yuan energy erupted, the flame on his body became even more terrifying. Bang! Suemo stepped forward and kicked the senior brother away. At the same time, he extinguished the flame. In just a short while, the senior brother was burned beyond recognition. It was extremely terrifying to look at. What an unlucky guy. What a strong extension power, just like the fire-glazed infernal emperor back then. Given enough time, Suemo will become the new fire-glazed infernal emperor. Li Zongjiu looked at the interesting scene in front of him. Everything was changing. It seemed that Li Zongjiu's interference and changes had changed some of the specific trajectories. However, a new combination had been created. The famous fire-glazed Inferno Emperor was actually created by Li Zongjiu. Just thinking about it was a bit inconceivable. Interesting. Li Zongjiu sat there and smiled. This was the first time Suemo saw Li Zongjiu revealing such a smile. It seemed a little wretched. Li Zongjiu, what are you thinking in your head? Suemo couldn't help but say. Li Zongjiu woke up with a start and coughed a few times to resolve the awkwardness in front of him. How could he be so immature? In any case, he was an old monster who had lived for 3,000 years. What was there to be surprised and happy about? He really hadn't seen the world. Cough, cough. Nothing. Li Zongjiu said. What should we do with these three people? Bury them? Suemo looked at Li Zongjiu. These three people had shown strong hostility towards Li Zongjiu from the beginning. Since they were enemies, they couldn't let the tiger go back to the mountain. Naturally, they had to clean them up and ensure that there wouldn't be any trouble in the future. Why are you so ruthless? Li Zongjiu looked at Suemo. Why did this guy want to bury people so easily? It was too violent. Such an idea wasn't worth advocating. Then Li Zongjiu stepped forward and took off all the storage rings on their bodies. There were many treasures in these storage rings. Most importantly, the medicinal herbs that they had painstakingly collected these days had all fallen into Li Zongjiu's hands. It feels good to reap without sowing. Li Zongjiu let out a long sigh. No wonder so many people wanted to eat and wait for death. This feeling was indeed very good. Zhao Qingfeng slowly woke up from his coma and found that only Li Zongjiu and Suemo were standing on the ground. Li Zongjiu was holding his storage ring, as if he was looking for something. My ring! Zhao Qingfeng immediately shouted after seeing it. But Li Zongjiu directly kicked his face. Go to sleep. It's mine now. Chapter 359. Let's part here. I can't continue to send you off. Suemo told Li Zongjiu. Sumo's troop was stationed in another area. The troop in charge of Heavenly Star Medicine Manor's expedition wasn't Sumo's troop. Different troops had different areas of jurisdiction. If they rashly overstepped their boundaries, it would cause some misunderstandings. Alright, let's meet again if fate allows it. Li Zongjiu cupped his fists at Suemo. Suemo possessed the inextinguishable flame seed in his body. Coupled with the protection of the fire glass flower, he would definitely be able to achieve great things in the Vermilion Bird military. This expedition to White Blaze Mountain might have seemed easy, but in reality, Suemo would have died twice if Li Zongjiu hadn't been present. Just counting the number of people who died, they had already died twice. If any other accidents had occurred, he might not have been able to walk out alive, even if he had 10 lives. If Li Zongjiu hadn't gotten rid of so many terrifying meta-beasts in the cave, the idiotic trio wouldn't have been able to enter. They would have probably been crippled by a large group of meta-beasts the moment they entered. Li Zongjiu's bloody battle in the cave could be said to be the most desperate battle he had ever experienced since his rebirth. If it hadn't been for the thorough use of his origin energy and the power of his origin spirit, Li Zhongjiu might not have been able to get rid of these meta beasts so easily. If it had been anyone else, even if it was a Yuan King-level powerhouse, they would have been defeated. There was a high chance that they would have died there. Therefore, it wasn't that this place wasn't dangerous, but that Li Zhongjiu was too strong. Li Zhongjiu took a casual inventory. After plundering the spiritual herbs of the trio, he had found more than 100 stalks of high-quality spiritual herbs. It was clear that the trio's standard was pretty good. After all, these people were students of the Heavenly Horizon A course. If they didn't have any skills or specialties, it would have been really difficult for them to enter the Heavenly Horizon A course. The sky had just begun to darken. However, someone had already returned from the campsite. The person who returned was none other than Li Zhongjiu. Originally, Li Zhongjiu planned to use the rest of the time to search the surroundings and see if there were any precious medicinal herbs. However, the three fools directly delivered these herbs to him, so he didn't even need to look for them. Naturally, Li Zhongjiu wouldn't be so troublesome. If he had the time, he might as well cultivate. At this time, Li Zhongjiu's mind was only filled with cultivation. Cultivation made him happy. There was also the matter of the Yi clan. It seemed that after returning to the city, he would have to make a trip to Lomun's residence. This Yi Lomun was really arrogant. What kind of status did he have in society? He actually dared to give such an assassination order directly. He really didn't know what was good for him. You. Which class are you from? You're back so soon? A mentor saw Li Zhongjiu and suddenly widened his eyes. There was still a whole night's time, but he didn't speed up the search and instead came back early. It was obvious that he had given up on the competition. Li Zhongjiu, why are you back so soon? At first, Ling Yan didn't dare to believe it. However, she had already felt a familiar aura from afar, so she walked out. When she saw Li Zhongjiu coming back, although she was surprised, she wasn't very surprised. It seemed that she had already expected this. Oh, I've already found the wrong one. Anyway, it's the first place. It doesn't matter if there are more or less. Li Zhongjiu said very calmly. Hearing Li Zhongjiu's words, some of the surrounding instructors couldn't help but laugh out loud. This brat was too arrogant, wasn't he? Ling Yan, is this the genius of your class? He really has a lot of potential. Hu Fei, my class's matters have nothing to do with you. Clearly, Ling Yan was very unhappy with the person who came out to laugh at her. Li Zhongjiu also felt that the somewhat young man in front of him was somewhat familiar. Wasn't he the class teacher of those three idiots? Although Hu Fei and Ling Yan were both mentors of the Sky STEM Department's A class, their relationship wasn't very good. It was said that Hu Fei and Ling Yan had once dumped a close friend of Ling Yan's, so Ling Yan was very unhappy with Hu Fei. However, Hu Fei's strength was indeed very strong. It was also because of this that Hu Fei was specially allowed to stay in this school. However, whenever Ling Yan saw Hu Fei, she would never look at him with a good expression. Ling Yan, you're a class teacher now. You should watch your words. Otherwise, how can you be a teacher? Hu Fei glanced at Ling Yan indifferently. Then, his gaze very subtly landed on some of Ling Yan's key parts. Hu Fei was also very interested in such a hot-tempered little horse. He wanted to ride it and feel what it was like to ride it. When facing a girl with such a strong personality, he naturally couldn't use normal methods to deal with her. He had to use a special method. He had to purposely sing a different tune and make the other party hate him. Then, he would find an opportunity to make the other party change her view of him. These methods of chasing girls were too easy for Hu Fei. Whether I'm a teacher or not, it's none of your business. You should take care of yourself first. Ling Yan rolled her eyes at the latter. However, Hu Fei smiled faintly. What? You want to compete? How about this? How about you and I make a bet? Hu Fei looked at Ling Yan. There was a trace of a scheming smile on his face. However, in Ling Yan's eyes, this smile was mocking her. Thinking of this, Ling Yan clenched her teeth in anger. What bet? Do you think I'm afraid of you? After being provoked like this, Ling Yan's temper immediately flared up. Since you and I are class teachers, then let's see who can get first place in our respective classes. Hu Fei waved his hand, seeming to be very casual. Not to mention that the strength of the second years was stronger than the first years. Just the number of people was unfair. The second years had a total of 4 people, while the first years only had 2 people. How could they be their opponents? With such a big chance of losing, as long as it was the winner, they would be able to see it. Of course, I won't rely on the advantage of numbers. If your class can reach half of the total number of our classes, then it'll be considered your win. Hearing this, it seemed to be very fair. But in reality it was still unfair. Sometimes 1 plus 1 didn't equal 2. There were some places that one person couldn't pass through. There were some meta beasts that one person couldn't defeat. However, when there were 2 or even 3 people, then there was a chance. Therefore, the nature of the situation was completely different. However, Ling Yan also said very heroically when he heard this. Alright, let's do it this way. Who's afraid of who's a grandson? Then tell me what's the bet? Hearing Ling Yan's words, Hu Fei also knew that his plan had succeeded. A little guy like you still dared to play so many tricks with me. If we lose, the other class will take on the basic tasks for a month. How about it? Okay. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.